The faint hush of pre-dawn stillness lay across the mountains of northern Dorne, a velvet quiet broken only by the distant hoot of a nightjar and the hush-rush of wind along limestone ridges. In the small half-hidden valley of Shadewater, named for the silver-blue stream that slipped between dark oleander groves like a sinuous ribbon, dawn arrived gently, as though reluctant to disturb the souls sheltered here. The keep that anchored the valley was no lord's seat of storied banners and high towers, but a modest fortress manor built into the cliffside itself. Pale sandstone walls warmed by the dark rose of sunrise, arrow slits masked by flowering vines, a single square tower crowned with slate. It had been an abandoned toll post in ages past. Its tiny pier, forgotten by traders, once larger ports, rose along the coast. Now it served as sanctuary, and the women beneath its roof guarded that secret as fiercely as any mother wolf or desert lioness. Lyanna Stark woke first, as she often did, eyes flying open at the knife edge of a half-remembered dream. The crack of a tourney lance, the tang of blood against roses, the sulfur smell of torches in a midnight tower. Her breath caught in her throat. At home in the cold mists of the north, the chill air might have grounded her at once. But here heat clung even to the night, and sweat slicked the nape of her neck. She pushed tangled hair, still mostly fog-gray from moonlight, streaked with the cold dusk of her northern lineage, away from her face, and sat up slowly on her narrow pallet. For a long moment she listened. No cries, no clash of steel, only the hush-rush of the stream. Beneath that, she felt for the heartbeat of the fortress, as a woodsman feels for the pulse of a tree. The faint stir of servants in the yard, the creak of braziers, and somewhere, muffled by layers of stone, a child's soft exhale. That steadied her. Eyed. Her John. She rose, slipping a rough-spun robe about her shoulders, and knotted the sash with deliberate care. Each morning ritual was an oath renewed. She was alive, her child was safe, the world remained to be remade. Though the maesters had bled her near empty at the Tower of Joy, though she had ridden half the length of the realm with sorrow, gnawing her insides, Lyanna Stark had endured. And, by some twist of fate or stubbornness of spirit, so had Elia of House Martell, Princess of Dorne, sister to Oberyn, bride once to a prince whose bright dreams had kindled too great a flame. They lived because a patchwork of unlikely actions had converged. Rhaegar's Kingsguard had disobeyed an order. Ashara Dane had smuggled Elia south under a false name. Eddard Stark, sea-tired and grief-scalded, had bartered valor for mercy when he found two women in that blood-soaked tower instead of one. The songs would never tell it true, but they were alive. And the children, Rhaenys with her cat-bright eyes, baby Aegon giggling at dust motes in a shaft of sun, Jon small and solemn as winter twilight, were alive too. Lyanna stepped into the corridor. The walls of Shadewater were always cool to the touch before sunrise, the stone drinking in night's tiny gift of chill. She moved barefoot, memory measuring each flagstone from habit learned in Winterfell's crypt-like passages, heel-toe, quiet as snow, past the balcony where broad-leafed cacti had been coaxed into clay pots. She saw the harbor below. A little half-moon cove, where the sea pressed close in glittering promise, though the tide had receded to reveal dark rocks slick with salt. One small fishing boat was already out, a dark speck sliding toward open water. This coast was no battlefield. Here, the war that had killed so many existed only in nightmares, carried on desert wind. Down 2 steps, her hand found the carved lintel of the nursery door. The air smelled of lavender sachets and sweet marjoram. Elia insisted deterred sandflies. Lyanna eased the latch and entered. Against the far wall, a low cot of polished cedar cradled Jon. At just past 10 moons old, he lay sprawled on his back, one tiny fist upraised as if to catch dreams mid-flight. Dark lashes brushed the soft swell of his cheeks. His little lips pursed, released an almost snore, pursed again. The sigh that left Lyanna's body then seemed pulled from her bones. Relief mingled with something sharper, a gratitude edged in fear. Beside Jon's cot, in a bigger cradle painted with twisting red and orange sunbursts, Baby Aegon slept face down against his pillow, rump cocked, knees tucked beneath. Rhaenys, almost 4 and fierce as a hawklet, had wriggled out of her own bed and lay curled at the foot of Aegon's, dark hair fanned like a spill of ink, one grubby hand clutching a wooden dragon. Lyanna watched them until her heart stopped hammering in her ears. Only then did she sense the quiet presence at her shoulder. Elia, robed in soft cotton the color of dawn over gold-brown skin, moved soundlessly despite the walking stick she sometimes needed on cooler mornings. Old scars at her hip and ribs flared when damp set into her joints, but the Dornish princess never complained. She carried a candle stub merely for the comfort of light. "Storms in your dreams again?" Elia's voice was a whisper, shaped by gravel paths and lemon groves, pitched low so the children would not stir. "Only echoes," Lyanna murmured back. "They fade." A lie yet kinder than truth. Elia's dark eyes, almond-shaped, deep, flicked over her friend's face, reading more than words. Lyanna's cheeks still shone pale beneath the burnt gold lamplight. "Come," Elia said. "Kitchen hearth is warm. Sanel has honey cakes ready for the breaking of the fast. We'll steal 2 and take them to the terrace before the babes wake." "Ban?" Lyanna hesitated, glancing again at the children. She never quite trusted the peace of sleep. It felt borrowed, like coin owed to a dangerous moneylender. But Elia touched her wrist, a butterfly brush that nonetheless commanded. It was a strange dance they had learned, wolf spirit and desert heart, sharing grief and duty, trading midnight watch for dawn vigil. They balanced one another. Lyanna's restlessness against Elia's quiet poise, Elia's fragile health against Lyanna's stubborn vigor. They left the nursery, drifting like ghosts, and descended to the keep's slender courtyard. Morning dew beaded on broad aloe leaves, and pale blossoms of moonflower still gaped open in the half-dark. In the kitchen, an ancient Dornish woman named Sanel hummed a Salt Road lament while coaxing coals. When she saw her ladies, she offered a toothless grin and produced a little stoneware plate where 2 round cakes waited. Honey glaze still shining, dusted with slivered almonds. Lyanna could barely recall the taste of sweetmeats from Winterfell's kitchens, those soft, dense oatcakes Maester Wales made for feast days. But the scent of honey, warmed in heartfire, coaxed a feral pleasure from her. They climbed the narrow spiral stair to the tower's rooftop terrace. Dawn's first light washed over the sandstone world. Sky a pale opal brightening toward molten gold along the horizon. Peaks of the Red Mountains linear in rose and violet shadow. High wind rolled across crenellations, tugging strands of their hair. They lowered themselves onto a stone bench polished smooth by centuries of Dornish sun. Salt tang from the sea mingled with the sweet of warm honey. For several minutes they ate in companionable silence. Lyanna let her mind wander to distant snows, pine ghosts at the edge of her imagination. Wolves on the prowl, the hush of the Godswood pond iced in moonlight. Yet the honey cake grounded her in the now, crumb melting on her tongue, syrup sticking to thumb and forefinger. Beside her, Elia broke a piece of crust and fed it to one of the little desert sparrows brave enough to perch on the parapet. When their plate lay empty save a scattering of crumbs, Elias' gaze fixed on the sea. "My brother writes that Oberyn's daughters plagued the water gardens with endless daring feats. Nymeria, only 4, climbed the fig tree and leapt to the fountain because she swore the water was deeper in that spot. Obara tried to outdo her by racing her horse in the orchard. Sand everywhere, fruit crushed, maesters scolding." A soft chuckle. "He says mother pretends to disapprove, but her eyes shine with pride." Lyanna found herself smiling through an ache she could not name. "Children should run," she said. "They should skin their knees and stain their clothes. The world will dull them soon enough." "Indeed," Elia replied, voice low. "We must buy them time, must we not?" Lyanna's fingers tightened around the stone bench. Across the realm, old powers jostled for advantage, now that Robert Baratheon rested uneasy on the Iron Throne. His marriage to Cersei Lannister had minted fresh gold for the Lion's coffers. Jon Arryn ruled the small council, and Stannis patrolled the Blackwater in new-built war galleys. Yet rumors spread already. of officers drunk on victory seeking revenge in quiet hamlets, of allies who remembered debts in blood. If word surfaced that 2 women long thought dead lived in exile with children of princely blood, the false-named bastard of winter, the dragon spawn of Dorne, storms would gather anew. Elia, Lyanna began, I should write to Ned again. Let him know we are untroubled here. Your letters travel leagues on hawk wings, Elia teased gently, and his replies come faster than any raven I have kept. He must have trained his birds in the winterlands to ride thunder itself. Then her expression sobered. Yet I agree. Ned keeps your secret close. He would die before letting harm near his sister. Or my children. But how long can he? Lyanna whispered. A gull wheeled overhead, shrieking its hunger. It banked eastward, toward the rising sun, limned in red gold as if forged of flame. Lyanna watched it dive toward the distant surf, and envied its simple yearning. She craved flight, to sweep across the kingdoms, hunt out threats, smash them before they gestated. Instead, she hid among oleanders. Elia, she said again, turning to her companion. There is wine enough in the cellar and stores for months. But steel is scarce. The armory boasts only a dozen helms, mostly rusted. And no proper breastplate would fit me. She tapped her chest. If trouble rides south, we will need more than honeycakes and good walls. Elia's brow furrowed. She shifted her aching hip, eyes narrowing against morning glare. We are not defenseless. Oberyn has promised men should any danger cross the prince's pass. Edric Dane keeps a garrison at Starfall. Arthur's death, 7 guide him, still holds honor among his household. They owe his memory protection of all who once swore to him. Then, Lyanna exhaled slowly. She would forever be grateful, and forever guilty, that the legendary sword of the morning had died shielding 2 women he scarcely knew. How many songs would warp that truth? Knights dying for love they never professed. For oaths to a prince whose name now tasted like ash. Only Lyanna and Elia truly understood. Arthur Dane had fought because he believed children should not be burned alive on the steps of a throne and women should not be trophies traded for crowns. He fought for a gentler realm that might yet exist someplace, perhaps even here, in this secluded valley. Still, she thought, songs do not sharpen blades. Below, a distant wail rose, more plaintive than panicked, followed by a toddler's determined babble. Rhaenys, awake and demanding her morning figs. Lyanna and Elia both stood. Their shared days flowed to the rhythm of those small voices calling. Milk hiccups, giggles, the startled cries when a new tooth tore gum. War memories retreated when entrusted with such fragile cargo. They descended 200 steps to reach the nursery again. Rhaenys stood barefoot on the window ledge. Sun-warmed stone beneath her toes, wooden dragon held aloft like a standard. Her night shift drooped over one slender shoulder. When she spotted the women, she puffed her chest in scolding accusation. Mother, she warbled at Elia, the dragons are hungry. You promised we would feed them at first light. And so? Elia knelt, ignoring the protest of her hip, and drew Rhaenys into her arms. Forgive me, bright sun. Our friend Lyanna delayed me with tales of snow. Rhaenys wrinkled her nose at the thought of cold. She allowed Elias' embrace only an instant, before wriggling free to race toward the door. Come. Aegon's awake as well. I heard him kick. Lyanna lifted Jon from his cot. He blinked, owl-wide eyes, a shade between gray storm and wildwood green. Irises ringed by startling dark. He reached clumsily, and finger pads pressed to her lips. She kissed each digit. Then together they left the nursery, Rhaenys leading with solemn purpose down the hall. Wooden dragon clacking against the wall with each stride. Breakfast, spread in the solar, overlooked the valley. Spiced goat cheese, figs split and drizzled with pomegranate syrup. Bowls of cracked wheat porridge sweetened with date pulp. Sinel muttered curses as she chased Rhaenys from the curing meats hung by windows. Lyanna settled cross-legged on a rug woven in Dornish sunbursts and set Jon in her lap. He lunged for a fig in smeared pulp across his cheek before she coaxed pieces into his mouth. Aegon gurgled from Elia's hip, fat fists drumming her collarbone, while Elia told him a nonsense tale about turtles who chased the moon. When Rhaenys tired of pacing, she flopped onto Lyanna's knee, eyes shuddering in momentary contentment. Sticky fingers curling in wolf-brown hair. Lyanna tugged a linen cloth from her belt to dab the child's chin. Rhaenys smirked up at her. "Lily smells of flowers," she declared. Then, leaning close, she stage whispered, "But her hair is tangled." Elia laughed, the sound like bells through lemon leaves. Lyanna rolled her eyes, but a smile tugged her mouth. "When you live among wolves," she informed Rhaenys gravely, "hair tangles itself to catch tiny secrets on the wind." Rhaenys pondered that. "Will it catch a dragon's whisper?" "It might," Lyanna allowed. A shadow fell across the breakfast carpet. They turned to see Sir Andre Dalt in the archway, helm tucked under one arm, white cloak smudged from dawn patrol. He bowed first to Elia, then to Lyanna. "Lady," he said, and though the word belonged to Elia by marriage and birth, he used it for the northern girl as easily as he wielded his sword. "Riders on the high road. 3. They bear the badge of House Uller, but their colors are wrong order." Lyanna stiffened. Elias hand cupped Aegon closer. "House Uller, vassals to Sunspear, famed for quick tempers and slower pardons." "How far?" Elia asked. "Perhaps an hour," Sir Andre replied. "They follow the goat track, not the main pass." "As if they know this place." Lyanna's mind ticked. Goat track meant local guides. Wrong ordered colors. Perhaps covert. The valley was rarely visited save by Dane retainers dropping off supplies, or Oberyn's messengers riding under peacebind. Oberyn always announced himself with noise and whine. She set Jon down, his little legs wobbling on the quilt. He clutched her finger. Sensing tension, Elia pushed food away, calm but pale. "Did you challenge them?" "I kept to cover." "They ride with bows," Andre said. Lyanna rose. "We should prepare." "Elia, take the children to the cellar tunnels." "Nandaru." Elia did not argue. Another silent pact between them forged in those first hours, after the tower, when blood still dripped from her side, and Lyanna's wounds still burned. If trouble came, they sheltered the little ones first. Rhaenys sensed the shift in air, eyes widening. "Is it bad men?" "No, brave one," Elia soothed, smiling. "Only visitors, and we must tidy before they arrive." But Rhaenys tilted her chin stubbornly. "I will defend Aegon." Lyanna crouched to grip the girl's shoulders. "You'll guard him by staying close to your mother." "That is a warrior's task." She placed Jon in Rhaenys' arms. The babe squealed, flailing chubby hands, but she held him with surprising steadiness. Pride flared in Lyanna's chest. Moments later, chaos hummed in the keep. Doors slammed. Boots pounded. The garrison, 6 men strong, took positions along battlements. Lyanna cinched a leather vest, plain but serviceable, over her robe and buckled a dirk at her belt. She had not the quarterstaff of Winterfell, but steel enough to open a stunned throat, if needed. Elia swaddled Aegon to her chest and gripped Rhaenys' hand. Sinel led them down a servant stair lit by rush torches toward the catacombs hewn into the cliff. These tunnels once stored smuggled wine. Now they hoarded greater treasures. Atop the tower, wind snapped Lyanna's hair free as she scanned the ridgeline. The sun had fully risen, heat already shimmering above the stone. And across that wavering haze she saw 3 riders pick their way along the goat track. Their cloaks bore the sun pierced by a spear of House Uller, but the red and gold stripes reversed, as though sewn by careless hands. Stranger still, they kept no distance between them, riders as Dornish couriers usually would, but clustered tight, heads bent in conversation. She lifted a spyglass, gift from Edric Dane, and studied faces half shaded by keffiyeh wraps. desert-tanned, eyes dark. Two men, one younger than the rest, the third with gray whiskers framing a mouth set hard. They carried short recurved bows lacquered deep maroon. Quivers rode their backs. Her heart thudded. Hunting bows. Ser Andre joined her, blade unsheathed. If they ride under false colors, they may test our patrols. Could be bandits wearing Uller garb to frighten villages. Them? Or spies? Lyanna murmured. Which is worse? Depends whose coin. They waited. Hawks circled high overhead, silhouettes like living shards of black glass. Dust plumes rose behind the riders' horses as they picked down the last switchback. Lyanna's limbs tingled, battle readiness remembered from winter hunts with Benjen. From tilts at Harrenhal. Yet more than her own pulse she felt the echo of tiny heartbeats below. John, Rhaenys, Aegon Dada. Life that had barely begun. The riders drew within arrow's reach. And then they halted, looked up, and the oldest removed his wrap. He called across the gap, voice carrying on wind. We come in peace to speak with the Lady of Shadewater. His accent, thick Dornish drawl. Under parley. Ser Andre half turned to Lyanna. Your call. She took a breath. The first test of whatever fragile sanctuary they had woven. Let them speak, she said. And to herself she added, for the children's sakes, let words weigh heavier than blades. Below, stone gates groaned open. Sunlight poured across the courtyard floor, gilding dust motes swirling like embers around Lyanna's feet. She squared her shoulders and descended to meet whatever truth rode in on those borrowed banners, every step echoing like the drumbeat of a future she could barely envision. How many roads led forward from this moment? How many ended in ruin? Yet as the chill certainty of purpose settled in her bones, Lyanna Stark felt the old fire ignite. She had survived towers and kings, and the breaking of a realm. She would survive 3 riders on a goat track. And if she could not, then she would carve a legend fierce enough to shield those children until the world was ready to be kind. She reached the gate just as the first rider crossed beneath the arch. Sunlight caught the polished rivets of his bridle and flared across his eyes. Eyes that widened when they recognized the gray-blue stare of the wolf maid they had all believed long dead. But his surprise was no greater than hers, for on his chest he wore not a badge of House Uller at all, but a small brooch shaped like a hand clasping a flame, the emblem of the Brotherhood without banners. He bowed, and when he spoke, his voice trembled with urgency. My lady, we seek the dragon's dawn. His gaze flicked past her, toward the keep's heart. We seek the children. Dark wings carry dark words. The throne hunts shadows. Lyanna's fingers closed around the hilt of her dirk. Behind her, in the cool safety of the tunnels, 3 little lives waited, each a spark against the coming night. Oh, Ka. Lyanna tasted dust as it lifted from the rider's hooves, an acrid tang that clung to her tongue and made the air feel brittle. She kept her back straight, palms relaxed at her sides, but her pulse shivered against the inside of her wrists. The courtyard seemed suddenly smaller, its humble walls oppressive under the stir of wind. Stone archways carved with faded Rhoynar knots offered little shelter against the unknown. Every carving felt like an eye. The oldest rider dismounted with a grunt. Close now. Lyanna saw sun-creased seams radiating from the corners of his eyes, the telltale silver of an old blade nick across his brow. He moved like a man accustomed to armor heavier than the sleeveless leather he wore today. One shoulder dipped to accommodate phantom weight, and his knees bent methodically, as if still guided by greaves. He slipped the bow from his back and passed it to the younger rider behind him, then pressed a hand over the flame brooch at his breast. The symbol glinted, copper bright under sunlight, a sliver of fire about to leap. I am Gerd Unger, he said, voice rough as a riverbed in drought. Formerly of House Will's retinue, now sworn to the Brotherhood without banners. These companions are Harlan's Sweetling and Naim of the Stepstones. He indicated the lanky youth and the wiry man with eyes like onyx. We ride beneath false colors so the wrong eyes mark us as petty lordlings, not outlaws. Ser Andre's blade remained half-drawn. Gerd's gaze flicked to it, then back to Lyanna's face. No one means harm under this roof, Lyanna told Sir Andre without turning. Steel rests. Andre hesitated, reading possibilities in Garrett's stance, then sheathed with a hiss. From the corner of her eye, Lyanna saw stable hands edge forward, uncertain whether these guests merited the usual courtesies: water for horses, dates for riders. Sanel, summoned up from the tunnels by some servant's whisper, hovered beneath the gallery, wringing a rag between her bony hands. Garrett inhaled, steadying himself. "We sought Elia of Dorne," he said. "But finding the wolf maid alive is a blessing we did not dare name." Lyanna bristled. "Wolf maid, at." The name evoked Harrenhal whispers, the songs of squires who had stared at her like a half-wild miracle. It felt like another life. "Elia lives, but she is not receiving strangers at sword point. What business drags you across scorched passes to stir our peace?" Naeem barked a laugh. Sharp, nervous. Harlan's hand rose gently to hush him. Garrett took a step closer, boots scuffing pale dust across the mosaic tiles. "The peace you trust is brittle, my lady. King Robert's court jilts from revel to rage. Yet in every quiet hour one name gnaws the back of his mind. Targaryen." He spoke it soft as blight. "Some say he dreams dragonfire on his sons, and wakes thirsting to shatter every ember. Varys stokes those fears with tales of hidden hatchlings, silver-haired infants smuggled through villages. Lord Tywin fans the flames by tallying gold for bounty hunters. We intercepted 2 such hunters near Ghost Hill. They carried lists." Garrett reached under his jerkin and produced a folded vellum. The wax was broken, the seal too mangled to identify, but the ribbon was Lannister red. Lyanna's stomach flipped. "Show me." Garrett offered the parchment. She unfolded it with care. Columns of crabbed script marched down the page. Names, birthplaces, rumored disguises. Prince Aegon, Babe of Dragonstone, described as possibly swaddled by Dornish traders, last sighted near Will. Princess Rhaenys, 3 winters, may pass as bastard of minor Dornish knight. Under those smaller notations: infant of northern aspect, mother unknown, companion to the above. A jagged checkmark inked beside each line. Something inside her turned suddenly cold. She folded the vellum again, joints rigid. "You bring Carrion news, Garrett Unger." "Carrion rots quick. Best we bury it," he replied. Brotherhood eyes stretched from the Kingswood to Salt Shore. "We protect small folk when lordly banners fail. But children of royal blood draw stouter talons than petty freebooters. We cannot shield them alone. My brothers bid me find the mothers, ask what walls they trust, warn them those walls are eyed by lions." "Nan?" Lyanna's shoulders slipped a fraction, burden settling. She motioned toward the keep. "Come." Shadow grows longer than ever. She turned, knowing Sir Andre would trail them at sword reach, and stable hands would see to the horses with hands that trembled only after bridles were secured. They crossed the yard, climbed worn steps into the tower's lower hall. The moment they were beneath stone, heat eased, replaced by cool earth, smell. Lyanna led them to a sparsely furnished chamber where morning sun striped a long oak table. There she gestured to benches. Garrett sat first, the young Harlan hovering till his captain nodded. Naeem remained near the door, eyes cataloging exits. Sir Andre stationed himself by a shuttered window. Lyanna poured watered wine from a clay ewer. It bled ruby into pewter cups. "Drink. You have ridden far." Garrett accepted. Harlan sniffed the wine, reverent, then gulped. Naeem declined with a curt shake. "We ate dates at dawn," he muttered. For a heartbeat. Silence. Outside, gulls quarreled on the parapets. "Elia must hear this," Lyanna said quietly. "First you answer me. How wide is this search? How many hunters leave King's Landing?" "At least 4 bands," Garrett replied. "One rides west along Blackwater Rush, sniffing for Velaryon ships. One took the Roserad north, prying into brothels for silver-haired girls. We know a pair shipped for bravos, seeking sellswords who once followed the Golden Company. He exhaled. The last hunt wears no badge and keeps no ledger. Silent men and black mail. Rumor names them little birds grown tall. Lyanna pictured Varys' whisper network, sprouting daggers. She had met the eunuch once, in Robert's camp at Storm's End, when Ned paused on his return from the south. Varys' eyes had lingered barely a second too long on her layered cloak. Lyanna had felt as if he smelled the secret tucked inside her womb. Footsteps approached. Elia slipped through the archway, hips stiff but head high. She carried Aegon in a sling, bundled so only his tuft of dark hair showed, and Rhaenys toddled beside, gripping her mother's sleeve. Senelle hovered behind, anxious but determined. The visitors rose. Garrett's face softened at sight of Elia. He looked suddenly younger, perhaps remembering her from tournaments long ago. Elia halted opposite the riders, eyes raking them like the point of a spear. "You bring ill tidings, sirs." Lyanna closed the distance, laying the vellum on the table. Elia scanned the script, eyes darting, breath hitching on each child's description. Aegon squirmed. She rubbed his back to soothe him. When she finished, she folded the vellum once, twice, then pressed it to her heart. "We knew the lion still smelt blood," she whispered. "But this is fresh stalking." Harlan cleared his throat. "Forgive, Princess, but Stark's brother soon returns to Winterfell for Harvest Festival. Eddard Stark drafted new wardens for the Neck. If hunters ride north, his marsh will not swallow all. Brotherhood thought it best you and yours cross the narrow sea. Bravos owes kindness to orphans and exiles." "Bah! Bravos owes coin to itself," Elia murmured. Rhaenys tugged her dress, eager to climb her lap, but sensing tension she settled instead against Lyanna's calf. Lyanna brushed the girl's hair from her forehead. "We have no galley, no crew," Lyanna said. "And if we vanish, Robert's dogs will scour Dorne first, punishing villages for silence." Gerd nodded. "Oberyn Martell intends to move his household to Sunspear proper within a moon's turn. Lords of the Greenblood ready barges for his retinue. Amidst that bustle, a small boat could slip seaward. Dorne will claim your children accompanied Oberyn's daughters to the water gardens. By the time Robert's raven seeks them, the craft will kiss Bravosian quays." Elia's lips parted. Possibility glimmered, like dawn shard. Then her face shuddered. "We would ask Oberyn to lie yet again. His patience with deceit thins. He would bleed the world to keep you breathing," Gerd countered. "Your survival is his solitary mercy in this realm of broken oaths." Lyanna sensed old grief pooling beneath his words. Perhaps Gerd had stood with Oberyn at the Red Mountains passes. Perhaps he too had fetched water for Elia's sickbed when she carried Rhaenys. The war had thieved something from every soul at this table. A low boom rolled through the keep, distant, hollow. Ser Andre stiffened. Naeem's hand shot to his bow, though string remained slack. Another boom answered it, nearer. Elia's eyes widened. "Signal drum," she breathed. "Cliff watch on the east ridge." The riders looked to Lyanna for explanation. "2 beats means stranger on the seaward road," she said. 3 more echoed, vibrating mortar. 3 beats. Riders in armor. Rhaenys pressed herself against Lyanna's leg. Aegon whimpered. Lyanna squatted, scooped the little girl into her arms, kissed her brow. "Senelle, take them to the tunnels." Senelle reached for Rhaenys. The child hesitated. "Come, little star," the old woman coaxed. Rhaenys slid down, still clutching Lyanna's fingers, until Senelle guided her out. Elia lifted Aegon and followed, every step a reluctant farewell. The moment they vanished, Ser Andre barked orders to unseen guards, his voice crisp, professional. Lyanna turned to the Brotherhood men. "If this is coincidence, it's a cruel one. Will you stand with us?" Gerd loosened his sword belt. "Steel rests no more," he said. Harlan exhaled a boy's shaky breath, but nodded. Naeem strung his bow. They stepped onto the parapet walk. Sun had climbed high, baking mortar. Yet salt wind carried a chill foreboding. Across the valley, Dust smudged the horizon, a troop ascending the seaward road through straggly myrtle. Lyanna borrowed the spyglass again. Black cloaks, black helms. No sigils, but she glimpsed the edge of a golden clasp glinting. A lion's paw, Lannister gold braided through black cloth. 6 riders, maybe 7. Paced by 2 crossbowmen on foot. They led a pack mule, burden concealed by canvas. Silent men, Gerd muttered. They prefer small groups. There's time, Sir Andre said. They must dismount to ascend the goat path. We could send an arrow rain. We risk the mule, Naim answered, eyes narrowing. Pack may hide a ballista or child coffer. Harlan whispered. Horrified, Lyanna's knuckles whitened on the spyglass. Andre's jaw set. We outnumber them if we strike at the switchback. Lyanna weighed. Surprise favored them, but if any rider escaped, word would streak back to King's Landing. Yet allowing approach risked the pack's unknown cargo. She pivoted to Gerd. The Brotherhood fight with guile. Counsel. Gerd studied the winding path, tracing loops with calloused finger in the air. Lay scarce archers at first bend, pepper lead riders, forcing retreat. Meanwhile, house-stained guards ride down flank, cut exit behind. Captives taken disappear. Their master assumes desert claimed them. Andre snorted. We have 6 men garrisoned, 2 archers. Dane guards are 2 days west. Then we become ghosts, Lyanna declared. Sir Andre, take Jaren and Milo. Skulk through the Oleander Gorge and flank path. Gerd your men with me at the ridge shelf. We fire once to scatter, then drop rocks. Rocks, Harlan echoed. In Dorne, mountains fight too, she said. Her voice surprised even her. Low iron engine's command voice layered onto her own. They moved. Guards fetched bundles of javelins dusting rust. Stable boys hauled hemp rope. Old siege hooks, inherited from smugglers, were hammered into sandstone. A small barrel of pitch was lugged to the shelf's edge, a congealed plug broken loose with sword pommel. Harlan and Naim began stacking fist-large stones along the lip, while Lyanna notched arrows from a dusty quiver. The black-cloaked party crept nearer, unaware. Below, the goat track pinched between a jutting spur and a sheer drop. Perfect choke. If stones cascaded there, horses would panic, riders scramble, crossbows falter. Andre's trio would strike from oleander tongues. Lyanna knelt, steadying breath. She glanced at Harlan. A boy, maybe 17, freckles lost beneath road grime. He caught her look. Swallowed. Offered a nod brittle as Micah. Gerd crouched beside pitch barrel, torch tucked ready. The silent men reached the spur. Lyanna felt time slow, the way it used to before a joust lance tipped toward a shield. She drew, held, and released. Her arrow whistled, plunged into the lead horse's neck. The beast reared, screaming, collapsing sideways. Its rider tumbled beneath. Before shock could register, Harlan loosed. His shaft skewered a crossbowman's shoulder. Naim's arrow clipped the mule's lead rope, sending the pack animal bolting into scrub. Gerd lit the torch, thrust it against cloth bung. Flames licked pitch. With a grunt, he heaved the barrel. It struck the path, splintered, spewing burning tar in a fan. Horses shrieked. Then Harlan and Naim pushed rocks, slabs, and fists, tumbling in fiery wake. The clatter thundered. One rider dodged only to catch a stone at the temple. Another slipped, leg crushed under mount. From Oleander's, Andre's men charged. Steel flashed. Lyanna could not see details through dust, but screams echoed off limestone. She drew a second arrow, sought any figure still upright. A rider in black rolled clear, ripping helm free, revealing shaggy blonde hair matted with sweat. He scanned, eyes wild, then sprinted downslope away from ambush. Lyanna pivoted, tracked, then froze. The fleeing man dragged something small, No. Someone by the hand. A child. Heart hammering, she hurdled sandstone ridge and slid down gravel toward a lower ledge. Wizard's fingers of heat licked her calves. Behind, she heard Gerd shout, but Lyanna felt a dealer fixation. The man half-dragged, half-carried a boy maybe 8 winters, old, dressed in rough-spun and wrist manacles. The child stumbled, crying out in Valyrian, "Aze, please." The man cuffed him silent and hauled on. Lyanna descended faster, boots skidding. She landed on the path 20 paces behind. "Leave him," she shouted. The blonde turned, brandishing a dirk near the boy's throat. Dust streaked his neck, tattoo of concentric rings, each notch filled with black ink. Not a Lannister retainer. A Dothraki slave brand re-inked. The man's eyes registered her, flicked to her drawn bow, measured distances. His lip curled. He pressed the blade and pulled the boy closer. Lyanna's bowstring creaked. "Harm him, and you lose the use of your hands before dying." Her voice did not waver. She edged forward, breath steady. Behind, hooves pounded. The mule, spooked, barreled back, eyes rolling white. It slammed the tattooed captor's flank. The dirk skittered. The boy fell to his knees, crying. Lyanna raced, seized the man's wrist before he reached the blade. They grappled. Heavier, he drove a knee, but she twisted, using momentum to spin him against rock. Her shoulder burned where his elbow struck, but she smashed her forehead into his nose. Cartilage cracked, blood spraying. He shoved off, snarling curse, reached beneath cloak. Lyanna glimpsed glint. Vial? Too late. He smashed it at their feet. Acrid smoke belched, burning throat and nose. Blind. She coughed. Stumbled aside. Braced to defend. But hoofbeats and a guttural cry pierced the haze. When clarity returned, the man lay gasping face down, an arrow in his spine. Naim approached, bow low. "He sought flight," he said flatly. Lyanna knelt to the boy. Shackles chafed skinny wrists raw. But his hair, silver gilt, fell in sweat plasters. His eyes, a shocking lilac, stared huge with terror. A Targaryen whelp not yet accounted for. "Valar Dohaeris," he whispered. Lyanna switched tongue awkwardly. "Ritzis, safe now." She gathered him, felt bones like reeds under grubby shirt. He clung, sobs shaking. She lifted him, turning to Naim. "Find the key. Free him." They located a ring on the dead man's belt. Naim's fingers worked hastily at locks. The boy winced, then rubbed wrists. Lyanna cupped his cheeks. "What is your name?" "Daron," he murmured, pronouncing it as a Sosi might. Daron Dardu, son of Daenor Storm of the Stepstones. Tear tracks carved pale lines down dusty face. He looked between Lyanna and Naim as if weighing trust. "They said king wants dragon spawn." "Wants me." "Not this king," Lyanna answered. "And you are no spawn, you are a child." She guided him up the path, back toward Shadewater. "Come." Bodies littered choke point. Andre's men dragged survivors. Binding wounds were useful. The pack mule had burst its load. Crates of iron fetters, leather strangling cords, small sacks of ground glass. Tools for quiet abduction. Lyanna's stomach twisted. Gerd strode to meet her, saw the boy, eyebrows knitting. "7 protect us," he muttered. "They gather any child with Valyrian shade." "He is proof," Lyanna said, anger hard under calm. "Proof they will not stop at Rhaenys and Aegon." They cast nets across the sea now. She guided Daron inside. Servants gasped at his hair, whispers followed. Down in the catacombs, Elia cradled her children near storage casks. Lyanna knelt, introducing Daron. Rhaenys edged closer, fascinated by lilac eyes. Jon perched on Sinel's lap, babbled wordless welcome. Elia listened to Daron's halting tale. sold by ship captain to black-cloaked strangers in Old Town. Marched in secret by night, told he would protect a dynasty by dying quietly. Each detail tightened Elia's jaw. When he finished, she kissed his forehead. "You are safe here." Gerd entered, grime and pitch streaking hair. "Our ambush leaves 4 silent men dead, 2 unconscious. 1 crossbowman fled down slope, arrow in thigh, but alive." He glanced at Lyanna. "He escapes, he speaks." "We pursue," Naim offered. Elia raised a hand. "No. He bleeds through barons. Sun will finish him. Let that corpse carry only uncertainty." Lyanna faced Elia. "This changes everything." "Yes," Elia whispered, voice thin but unflinching. "We sail." The word dropped like lead, yet relief rippled. A decision at last. Lyanna's chest loosened, then clenched again. Winter fell. Ned. She pictured his calm gray gaze when he would discover she had flown across the world. Would he blame himself for failing to shield her? But children came first. They had to outrun the hunt. They convened in the solar that night. Candles guttered. Shutters rattled in brisk sea breeze. Maps sprawled across the table. Crenellations of coasts. Spider threads of currents. Gerd tapped a spot north of Planky Town. Smuggler's Cove called Elmweed Hollow. Silent at low tide. A sloop under black sails waits. Captain sworn to brotherhood. Crew? Lyanna asked. 8 Esosai, salt wives. Loyal, Datual. Bentau. And payment? Gerd shrugged. Captain Lark owes Beric Dundarian a life debt. This repays interest. Elia studied distances. We must leave before Robert hears rumor of lost hunters. How long to dismantle Shadewater? Servants need 2 days to pack essentials. Any longer, we risk ravens beating us to Sunspear, Sir Andre said. Lyanna looked to Elia. 2 dawns we ride. They scattered tasks. Teamsters to load carts, scribes to burn ledgers, kitchen hens slated for stew, so no rooster would crow at empty roosts. Elia wrote Oberyn in cipher, sending messenger hawk that night. Desert roses must drink Brevosian dew. Grant shade? Oberyn would know. Lyanna penned Ned. Duty forces the wolf south by sea. Guard winter stars. Teach them to sing of snow. She sealed it with blank wax, trusting the silence. The moon tipped west. In the nursery, Lyanna and Elia packed small bundles of toys. Rhaenys's wooden dragon, Jones felt direwolf. Aegon's amber teething ring. Daron watched from doorway, unsure where he belonged. Lyanna beckoned. Together they folded miniature tunics dyed dull to hide royal hues. Later, when the children slept, they sat on the terrace again. No cakes this time, only wind. Below, torchlight danced as guards patrolled double. Elia reclined against a bowl cushion, exhaustion etching fine lines at her mouth. "I asked the mother many times why she spared me," she said softly. "Why leave me broken-boned and bruised, yet strip away my babe's father, my house's honor? Tonight I think I know. She spared me to guard those children, mine and yours, and perhaps this new one. We shall birth a world kinder than the one that birthed us." Lyanna folded knees under her. "A world where Rhaenys can shout at seagulls, and no man flinches, because her hair recalls a dead house." She looked toward stars diffusing above the ridge. A world where Jon need not hide his name. Pausing, she traced constellations, lips moving silently. Ice dragon, rider's spear, switching sky. "When we reach Bravos, we'll find quiet quarters, teach them to swim the canals," Easier said. She knew, but dream had power. Waves washed faint on distant rocks. Gulls nested. No drums broke night. Yet rest would not come soon. They remained on the terrace until candles died, speaking in murmurs. Of Winterfell feasts, of water gardens, of sweet childhood things they refused to abandon. Each memory became a stone wall guarding tomorrow. Dawn bled peach across Shadewater upon their final morning. Wagons rattled under arch, linen bundles lashed to sides. Children tumbled about, joyous at the bustle, unaware of finality. Darren stood a step apart, shy, until Rainey's tugged him toward the cart and assigned him command of imaginary drakes. He climbed aboard, smiling for the first time, gap-toothed and marveling. Lyanna donned boiled leather over riding surcoat, dyed desert rust. At her hip, she hung Arthur Dane's short sword, recovered from Tower of Joy, cleaned, sharpened but never unsheathed since. Today she might need its memory more than edge. Elia wore a plain olive cloak, hood rounded to disguise regal posture. Aegon nestled in sling beneath. She clasped Lyanna's hand. "We ride side by side," Elia said. "If fate splits us at sea, find the house of the broken god and brave us." Oberyn's agents watch those monks. "We will not split," Lyanna promised, squeezing. Ser Andre swung into saddle, white cloak replaced by dun traveler's cloak. Gaird's Brotherhood band blended with garrison, distinction lost among utilitarian leathers. Stable hands unlatched the gate. Horizon shimmered. As the first wheel crossed the threshold, a shadow rippled down the path. A falcon diving. It screamed past Lyanna's ear and perched on parapet, tarsi gripping stone. A ribbon laced its leg. Lyanna's gut lurched. Ned? Sinel approached with trembling hands, retrieved message. The bird fluttered off. Lyanna cracked seal. Ink blotted, irregular. Written in haste. Storm gathering wolves. Robert Hunt's rumor of silver babe in Dornish wastes. Lannister Goldbye's tongues. The fingers of his hand reach far. Some to Essos. Keep to shadows. You are loved, Eddard. She closed her eyes, exhaling a shaky breath of mingled relief and dread. He knew. He did not forbid. He bid them run. Pocketing the scrap, she swung onto her horse. Sun-crested ridge, warmth-bathed valley. In that glow, children's laughter chimed like Smith's hammer forging something wholly new. A migratory chorus ready to test foreign skies. They set out, wagons creaking along scrub-lined road, hooves kicking dust into dissolving dawn. Shadewater keep receded, its sandstone merging with cliffs until it became merely another shape the desert carried. Ahead lay Elmweed Hollow, a sloop, and an endless, uncertain sea. Yet as Lyanna guided her mount beside Elia's cart, as Jon gurgled upon seeing her, and Rhaenys waved a wooden dragon in salute, she realized the shape of fear inside her had changed. It shared its hollows with a stubborn hope, like water seeping into a cracked cup and finding room. 5 children rode under their guard now, 5 small flames. If the world hunted them, it would find them moving, breathing, laughing, living too quick for nets and too bright for darkness. And in that motion would lie their survival. Wind shifted, carrying brine. Somewhere beyond sight, gulls cried. Lyanna breathed deep, touched heel to her mare, and rode on toward the edge of everything she had ever known, determined that none who followed would carry shadow enough to snuff the light that rode within that rattling sunlit cart. And now, dust rose behind the wagons in shimmering ribbons that twisted and frayed, only to dissolve in the bleached vastness of the Dornish horizon. By mid-morning, the caravan had rattled miles beyond the jagged spires that sheltered Shadewater. Already the keep felt like a carved memory the desert would soon reclaim. 7 mounted outriders formed a loose arrowhead ahead of the carts. Ser Andre, Gerd, Harlan, Naeem, and 3 of Shadewater's own spearmen, while Lyanna rode the left flank, eyes narrowed beneath the brim of a salt-stained riding hat. Beneath her, the dappled mare shifted with restless energy. Heat waves rose off the chalky road. Every so often she caught a whiff of sage and sun-cured goat dung, but otherwise, the land smelled of raw stone baking. Inside the lead wagon, Elia sat on a padded chest with Aegon cradled against her heart. Jon lay in a wicker cradle at her feet, lulled by the gentle jounce of wooden wheels. Rhaenys and Daeron shared a cushion opposite. For the first miles, their excited chatter had filled the covered space. Rhaenys describing, in authoritative bursts, the shapes she imagined in drifting clouds. Daeron answering with Essosi legends of fish-tailed saints that guided sailors. But the heat soon bent their conversation to drowsy murmurs. Joystick-thin shafts of light lanced through holes in the canvas, painting dust motes golden. Elia stroked Aegon's dark curls and closed her eyes. Every clatter of a loose board, every scrape of iron on wood outside could be arrows notched or blades drawn. And yet, for a few long minutes, the children slept. She breathed them in as if they were a single, fragile perfume that might evaporate if she did not cup the moment in her lungs. Lyanna signaled a halt when the sun speared noon high. A lone wind-bent juniper offered a sliver of shade beside a cluster of mossy boulders, and the small column pulled in around it. Waterskins passed hand to hand. Flatbread, olives, and salted goat strips appeared from burlap pouches. Gerd eased his bulk to the ground with a soft grunt, stretching a leg that had stiffened around an old pike wound. He watched Rhaenys scamper after a green-blue lizard skidding across warm stone. "Girls got Oberyn's fire," he said to Lyanna. Lyanna tipped a skin to her lips, then poured a trickle into Jon's cup. And her mother's stubborn grace. She offered the cup to the baby. Jon complained at the trickle, slapped tiny palms on its rim, then beamed at the splash on his chin. Gerd took a bite of bread. Daeron's quiet. Lyanna followed his gaze. The silver-haired boy stood at the perimeter, contemplative eyes fixed on the southern ridgeline where purple shadows folded like stacked sails. "He's felt cages too young," Lyanna replied. "Quiet is the armor children forge when grown folk fail them." She rose, dusted her trousers, and walked to where the boy stood. He did not startle. He registered approach with a half-turn, as though always guarding one flank. His thin shoulders looked sharper in the blazing light. Lyanna crouched until her gaze was level with his. "Tell me what you see." At first she thought he might shrug, but he pointed. "That hill is shaped like a mastiff's back. The one beyond it looks like a prow cutting waves. You sailed often?" "Across the steppe towns and Lys. My father traded dried squid for Myrish lace." His voice held a faint, liquid accent, the vowel swell of the southern free cities. Lyanna considered. "Captain Lark's sloop will be smaller than your father's ships, but she's swift. The narrow sea sometimes treats small craft with kinder hands than large." She studied his face. "When we board, Rhaenys may pretend the rolling deck is a dragon's back. Feel free to remind her ships need balance." A flicker of amusement crossed his eyes before wariness returned. "Will we be chased?" "Perhaps," she admitted. "But the desert births less fearsome storms than the ones we carry inside. If dread grips you, breathe. Count your breaths. Breathe stronger than the storm." She placed her palm over his chest. "That beat? That's your own drum. March to it." A swallow bobbed in his throat. Then he asked, "Will I have to change my name?" Lyanna's reply lodged behind her tongue. She remembered Ned's warning of Robert's hunters, Varys' whispers. She exhaled slowly. "In Bravos, we might all wear new cloaks. But a name is a seed. Hide it in fresh soil if you must, but don't forget where you planted it." She stood, ruffling his hair. He ate. Salt and bread are easier armor than silence. She left him with a strip of goat and returned to the others. By late afternoon they traversed a narrow gorge choked with oleander and wiry grasses. Here the heat rebounded between walls, turning the air thick, almost soupy. 3 times Lyanna dismounted to lead her mare through ruts so deep the animal's hooves scraped limestone. Harlan slipped while scouting an overhang and skinned his forearm. Rhaenys squealed when a thorn snagged her sleeve. Aegon, irritable with teething, howled until Elia coaxed him with a knuckle, dipped in boiled sage water. All the while, Gerd's gaze raked the cliffs, wary of bandits or worse. Lannister scouts disguised as such. They met only vultures spinning slow gyres overhead. The gorge spat them onto a rolling plain scarred by dry creek beds. Toward dusk, they made camp near an abandoned sheepfold, whose crumbling walls still offered half a windbreak. Tonight, there would be no fires. Wood was scarce, and smoke might trumpet their location. But Lyanna helped Gerd heat a thin pot of lentils over a half-buried brazier filled with goat dung briquettes. Cooking odors mingled with the peppery fragrance of night-blooming cereus that crept along the fold's rock face. Stars pricked overhead, chilled and bright. While guards posted watch, the women laid the children on layered blankets inside the empty fold. Rhaenys insisted on sleeping beside Daron, one arm slung possessively around his shoulders as if daring nightmares to breach the line. Jon fussed, then accepted a lullaby hummed by Senel. Aegon nursed until his lids drooped. Elia kept stroking his back long after he'd fallen asleep. Abbot. Lyanna stepped outside the low wall. The desert night carried a hush she'd never known in the north. Winterfell had murmured with pine sighs, distant wolf howls. Here silence pressed like a robe. She tilted her head at a rustle. Gerd emerged from the dark, wiping his dagger with an oiled rag. "You patrol too, lady." "I count shadows." She pointed across the plain. "Did you see the lantern?" He followed her line, eyes narrowing. Far away, a faint, intermittent glow flickered. Gone, then back. Gerd spat. Signal lamp. Could be smugglers about Myrish wine. Could be gold hunters. Either threatens. She glanced back to the fold. "We ride again before dawn. No campfire breakfasts." Gerd sheathed his blade. "I'll send Harlan to snuff brazier embers. Tell the lads to sleep with boots on." And now? Sleep came fitfully, broken by odd dreams. Ned's face dissolving into swirling snow. Benjen calling from a frozen lake while roses bled red onto ice. Robert's hammer smashing iron crowns. She woke before the whistle of Sir Andre's dawn alert. Heart pounding. The children were roused quickly. Sweaty curls flattened, blankets rolled, biscuits gnawed as they were settled into wagons. They covered leagues in the milky wash of early light. Wild burros cantered across their path. A pair of pale hart goats bounded up a crag as the caravan clattered below. Just past midday, they topped a rise and beheld Elmweed Hollow, a crescent inlet knife bit out of the coast, cliffs layering its edges like terraced amphitheater seats. The tide was out, exposing mudflats dotted with spindly green shoots. The elmweed that clung to brine and claimed the cove's name. Between flats and deeper water, a narrow channel remained navigable. There waited a two-masted sloop, hull black as crow feathers, sails reefed. A painted mermaid figurehead curved from its prow. Her smile chipped but still impish. Even at anchor, the vessel seemed to vibrate with impatience, as though the sea itself pressed for swift flight. Lyanna's pulse quickened. "Captain Lark," she murmured. She'd hoped the Brotherhood's word was true, but to see the craft there ready. Hope took corporeal shape. The path down proved treacherous. Switchbacks hacked from chalk and slate, sections collapsed by winter rains. Gerd took lead, barking commands while spearmen shouldered rope-secured chests. 20 yards above the mudflats, the path narrowed so carts could go no farther. They would leave wagons here, transfer essentials to the waiting longboat. Lyanna and Elia chose what must remain: surplus bedding, cast-iron cookware, heavier chests of dry grain. Elia lingered over a cedar box that held embroidered gowns she had not worn since court life. Gently, she lifted one violet silk from its cedar shavings, pressed it to her cheek, and laid it atop the pile destined for abandonment. Necessity is a thief, Lyanna thought. But if it saves children, let it steal. Captain Lark awaited in the shallows, beside a broad-beamed longboat. He was a reed-slender woman, to Lyanna's surprise. Weather-creased, cropped hair bleached near white by sun. A pine-cone scar puckering one cheek. She wore knee-high boots of black sharkskin and a sleeveless jerkin that bared rope-muscled arms tattooed with swirling knots. A slender saber hung low on her hip. "Who claims freight?" she called as Lyanna approached carrying Jon. Her voice rasped like cedar bark. Lyanna steadied the baby against her breast. "I do, Lyanna of House Stark. Though today I ride nameless. The Brotherhood sent word. Namnanani. Anwal." Barrack's seal carried weight. Lark swept a hand at the sloop. Nightjar's hungry for open water. Tide turns full in less than an hour. If your company can load by then, we'll sail. If not, we wait another cycle, and my hold empties faster than you can pay. We sail, Lyanna said. Every soul here hauls double time. She handed John to Sanel and grabbed a crate. Harlan, breathless from descending with a valise of weapons, paused to stare at Lark. The captain cocked a grin. Eyes forward, pup, unless you fancy a swim with pinch crabs. Harlan flushed and hoisted the valise into the longboat. Loading blurred into heave-ho rhythm. Elia boarded first with Aegon, settling the swaddled infant into a hammock slung beneath the stern seat, where sea sway would rock him gentler than mountain roads had. Rhaenys scrambled aboard after, crowing delight when she felt the boat lurch. Daron followed with slower steps, kneeling to touch salt water lapping the gunwale. Gaird's broad shoulders strained under a crate of salted beef. Naim rolled kegs of watered wine down planks. The last item was Arthur Dane's sword, wrapped in wool. Lyanna placed it herself beneath a coil of spare rope, as though burying bone. With everyone stowed, Lark signaled her crew. Women mostly, 2 men. All SOC. Oars dipped. The longboat skimmed through the channel. Behind them, Ser Andre and 2 garrison spearmen began wiping wagon tracks with broomtop branches. Faint misdirection. They would rejoin Oberyn at Sunspear, claimed they'd escorted Elia to Water Gardens. Andre saluted from the cliff, white cloak unfurled, before turning his horse west. At Nightjar's ladder, wind slammed Lyanna with brine so rich it tasted like tears. She steadied John, climbed. Decks smelled of pitch and rope, tar caulking seemed planks. Lark bounded aboard last, barking in the scene to her first mate. Sails flapped down, catching a stiff onshore breeze. The sloop heeled, bowsprit knifing seaward. Cliffs receded. Beach became tawny line. Soon the mainland flattened into a wavering mural, half mirage. Lark took the helm, eyes glinting. The sea's an honest liar, she called to Lyanna. It tells you it owns you, and that's true. Believe that one lie, and other deceptions slide off like oily wake. Dow. Lyanna braced near the rail, John snug in sling. And storms? Storms are judges, not liars. She angled the wheel. You pass, or you sink. Gun. Nightjar cut northeast, hugging coast by day, slipping farther out at dusk. The onboard routine settled quickly. At dawn, Lyanna sparred on deck with Harlan, wooden practice blades clacking while spray salted their hair. Rhaenys squealed encouragement whenever Lyanna executed a flawless feint. Daron watched, absorbing footwork patterns. Elia trained her focus on Aegon's feedings and on coaxing Jon through the wobbly beginnings of speech. Soft May and Bea that melted her in ways no court gallantry ever had. Sanel befriended the cook and transplanted shadewater breakfast habits into the galley. Honey stirred into cracked wheat mush, dried apricots simmered until plump. A week passed without sight of sails, save distant fishing dhows. Gulls replaced desert sparrows, their keening cries sliding through rigging at odd hours. On the 9th sunset, purple lightning forked behind roiling clouds off the starboard beam. Captain Lark paced, studying barometer and sky. Squall line bends faster than a snake spooked by wildfire, she muttered. She ordered sails reefed, cargo battened. Sea sighed with new texture. Unsteady, urgent. Children were secured below. Elia stayed with them, humming Dornish cradle songs. Lyanna helped on deck, cranking lines. A gust slapped her wet blonde hair across her eyes. She tasted coppery rain not yet fallen. Waves built. Nightjar rose, plunged. Lightning cracked, revealing the foam-white grin of breakers. Lark rode the helm, feet planted wide. Hold wind 4 points to port, she shouted. Crew scrambled. Lyanna strapped to the rail, shoulders burning as she hauled reefing ties. She felt giddy, battle-edge giddy, but kept mind on knots. When thunder boomed overhead, Jon cried below. Lyanna's throat tightened. Storms may judge, but love fears verdict. Still she worked, because each taut rope was a wall between fragile lives and a wet tomb. Rain unleashed, a sheet that flattened waves for half heartbeats before wind carved them new peaks. Nightjar plunged, gunwale near burying. Lark shouted something lost to gale. Lightning again, closer. Lyanna glimpsed a shape off port quarter, dark sail flashing white insignia. A crescent? Then gone behind wave ridge. She shouted to Gerd. He squinted, wiped rain, turned pale. Corsairs, he said. Cohoric raiders. Ride, storms. Lyanna scanned again. Nothing. Perhaps she'd imagined. But Lark cursed into wind, confirmed sighting. Only fools track in this weather. She spat. We outrun by dancing nearer the squall's spine. Pray my Nightjar knows the steps. She drove the sloop in a diagonal cut across waves, angle risky. Spray tore horizontal. Crew hung like pendulums. Lyanna glimpsed fear in Harlan's blanch, but the lad tightened rigging with frantic competence. Hours blurred. Thunder. Tilt. Crash. Correction. Nightjar seemed to skate the edges of chaos, hull groaning but unbroken. At last, lightning dwindled. Rain thinned to droplets that sizzled on deck. Dawn bled watery pink through ragged cloud. The sea calmed into vast gray quilt. No sign of pursuers. Exhausted, Lyanna stumbled below. Elia sat on a trunk, Aegon asleep in sling. Rhaenys dozed curled around Daeron's arm. Jon whined until Lyanna took him. She saw fresh worry lines on Elia's brow. We heard pursuit horns, Elia whispered. False horns, Lyanna assured, kissing Jon's hair. Storm shook the sound. But in her mind, she stored the memory of that dark sail. Proof the realm's hatreds had partners across oceans. 2 weeks later, Nightjar threaded the steppe-walled channels of Braavos. Fog draped the lagoon, muffling bells. Across sullen water, palazzos of the Isle of the Gods loomed. Marble fronts streaked with green age, gilded cupolas peering through haze. On approach, Lyanna smelled algae and tar, garlic frying in some unseen kitchen, and the fetid perfume of tidal flats. Barges glided by, gondoliers exchanging curt nods. Lark guided the sloop beneath the Titan's shadow. Its bronze feet straddling the entrance, beard-streaked verdigris. Children craned necks. Rhaenys declared the statue must be a petrified giant who'd angered a dragon. Daeron corrected her, a Titan, sworn to guard the lagoon. Jon gurgled approval. Nightjar docked at a half-ruined jetty in the Ragman's harbor. Lark secured lines, then turned to Lyanna. Here we part. I've debts in Tyrosh with meaner interest than the Iron Banks. She pressed a brass token into Lyanna's palm, and etched Nightjar's silhouette. Present this to any alley echo with a lantern hanging crooked. My shadow may appear. She clapped Lyanna's shoulder, then limped to supervise unload. The Brotherhood had arranged contact. Gerd, Harlan, and Naim flanked the group as they disembarked into the dock's chaos. Braavos was a mosaic of smells. Rotting kelp, spiced wine, horse dung, incense. Narrow streets wound like entrails between leaning timber houses, lacquered against rot. Above, rope bridges linked windows 3 stories high. Children scurried across them, chattering in tongue-twisted Braavosi. Gerd led them through a warren of alleys toward the house of the broken god, a hospice temple near the Sweetwater Canal. Its facade leaned, paint peeling to reveal brick like flayed muscle. Inside, candlelit corridors smelled of thyme oil and vinegar. A bald, one-armed priest greeted them, eyes mild. Gerd uttered code. The desert flowers in winter. The priest nodded, produced a bronze medallion bearing a weeping mask. Upstairs, he murmured. They followed him to a loft smelling of straw tick and boiled linen. Privacy of a sort. Elia sank onto a cot, finally letting shoulders slump. Rhaenys leapt beside her mother, giggling when the straw squeaked. Daeron lingered at the window, watching gondolas slip by below bright lanterns. Lyanna thanked the priest. He gave a gentle smile. All broken things seek mending. Rest. Food soon. He closed door. Gerd posted Harlan in hallway, Naim by courtyard hatch. Then he addressed Lyanna and Elia. We wait word from Lord Beric. Could be days. Elia eyed the patched rafters. Bravos sleeps lightly. Coins by tongues. We keep circles small. Lyanna unslung her pack, retrieved Ned's latest letter, delivered via Bravosi trader outside Pentos as Nightjar passed near. Ned wrote, Stormlands restless. Tyrells lend ears to Robert. Varys whispers dragon dreams nightly. Crows in free cities circle, talons open. Fly silent. He included a line for Jon, a charcoal wolfling doodle. Night weighed heavy. Lyanna lay awake listening to the city's pulse. Water lapping pilings, distant laughter filtering over canal, a tenor singing of unrequited love. She thought of Winterfell's godswood and the grit of snow between bark and glove. 5 children sleeping here, each future brittle as sea ice. She vowed to weave nets of protection stronger than the hunter's snares. And months blurred. Revos wrapped them in fog and anonymity. The house of the broken god gave sanctuary, but no illusions of permanence. Elia and Lyanna made the loft home. Straw cots upgraded to pallets stuffed with traded eiderdown. A second-hand cradle for Aegon. A shelf of chipped clay bowls. Rhaenys and Daron attended lessons with canal-side tutors. Reading, sums, Bravosi courtesy, a smattering of Pentoshi trade speech. Rhaenys thrived, adopting the flamboyant hand gestures of locals. Daron remained reserved, yet absorbed everything, including sword drills Harlan taught under a dripping arch where no city eyes cared. Jon toddled by 13 moons. He waddled across the loft, bumped knees, giggled. Lyanna chased him, heart hammering with each wobble. Aegon began babbling consonants that sounded like commands. Rhaenys swore he'd order dragons by age 2. Gerd vanished on Brotherhood errands, returning with coins or news. Robert's council argued about financing a new fleet. Stannis advocated patrols along Lys trade route. Euron Greyjoy reputedly sailed east searching for exotic plunder. Each rumor potentially intersected their flight. One damp morning, Harlan burst into the loft breathless. Gold cloaks in the ragmans, he wheezed. I saw sigils hidden under cloaks. Lannister crimson. His freckles stood out against drained face. Elia stiffened. Lyanna grabbed Arthur Dayne's sword bundle. How many? Half-dozen. Asking taverners of silver-haired girls. Nam. Gerd paced. We move tonight. The Bravosi Undercity hides deeper than hound noses. Elia hugged Rhaenys, who stared, wide-eyed. Daron clenched fists. Lyanna crouched, meeting children's gazes. New adventure, she said. We will play hide-and-seek with the city. That night, cloaked in gray, they slipped from the hospice. A drizzling rain hushed footsteps, blurred lantern halos. They threaded bridgeways, ducked through shuttered markets, paused beneath bronze statues streaked black by time. Harlan led them into a tangle of scent shops. From a trapdoor behind kegs of myrrh, a stair spiraled to catacombs half-flooded. There, passages reeked of saltpeter and wet brick. Naim lit hooded lamp. Walls glittered with mineral weep. Hours they walked, turning at markers. A painted fish skeleton, a bundle of twine nailed to lintel, symbols of smuggler cartography. Jon slept against Lyanna's shoulder. Aegon murmured in Elia's sling. Finally, the tunnel widened into an abandoned cistern. Candle clusters in niches revealed a dozen cloaked figures. Brotherhood cell. One step forward. Lordly bearing. Eye patch over left. Lord Beric Dondarrion. Presumed dead at Mummersford, but alive, it seemed. Though pallid, his beard threaded with gray. Lightning scars split his cheek to ear. Lady Stark, he greeted, voice hollow yet warm. Princess. You honor broken oaths with your perseverance. Elia offered formal nod. Lyanna studied the resurrected rumor. He looked half-ghost. Beric gestured to a side passage. A barge waits. Downriver, a Lysini cog will carry you to Pentos disguised as spice merchants. From there, safe houses, knit east, Norvos, Cohor, Marine if need. He paused. We build a chain of refuge until storms wane. Lyanna lifted chin. How long until Robert's wrath wanes? Kings tire of hunts when new prey appears. Uprisings, rebellions. Beric's single eye glinted. Old powers fracture. Whispers hint Viserys Targaryen seeks golden company. If war ignites in east, the west's gaze cannot follow all sparks. Elias' mouth tightened. We do not seek thrones. We seek peace. Thrones chase those who bleed their lineage, Beric replied softly. Jon stirred, eyes blinking moonlight where none shone. Lyanna cradled him, whispered winter lullaby. Hope is motion. She reminded herself. Keep moving. Enderal. Years turned like pages scorched at edges. The family, because that is what they became, wove an existence across Essos, always one harbor ahead of shadow. They wintered in Norvus, where bells tolled dawn, midday, dusk, and prayers, and Lyanna learned the truncated language enough to barter wool. Spring saw them drift to Qohor, city of blacksmith miracles. Gerd arranged work escorting caravans, and Lyanna practiced short sword drills beneath ironwood blossoms. Elia found a healer using milk of the poppy mixed with mint to ease her hip pain, allowing longer walks with the children through market arcades bright with dyed silks. Rhaenys befriended a blacksmith's daughter, learned to temper nails red, orange, yellow until they sang under hammer. Daron uncovered a knack for figures, keeping caravan ledgers by 13. Jon, skirting 5 winters, proved introspective yet fiercely loyal. He carried a carved direwolf, gift from Gerd's whittling, and would press it into Aegon's chubby palm whenever the younger boy fretted. Aegon, slow to words but quick to laughter, adored Jon more than any toy. But with every settled rhythm came tremors. In Norvus, a sellsword bragged in a tavern of dragon pups, hidden by desert witch and northern ghost. Lyanna heard it secondhand. Chilled blood. They left before dawn. In Qohor, pale men in black and gold traced their steps. Beric's spies warned they bore the sigil of the Golden Company. Again, flight. Each uprooting stitched children tighter to the fabric of caution. But Lyanna and Elia countered fear with stories. Braids of northern lore and Dornish fable. Essosi epics of Nymeria's 10,000 ships. Tales where clever foxes misled hounds. Where small birds carried ember seeds across oceans and birthed new forests. One autumn in the trading port of Celeries, Lyanna sat on a quay watching barges load saffron bales. She felt Jon's hand slip into hers. He pointed at a gull perched on piling. Why doesn't it fear the sea? It was born to ride its winds. She said, were we born for roads? We were born for living. She ruffled his hair, streaked with sun-bleached brown. Where we live matters less than how. He pondered, then said, I'll be a road then, and carry my brothers. Her heart ached with a mother's bright pain. She wished she could pour stillness into him, a hearth's permanency. Yet she also saw the resilience forged in his bones, the empathy sharpened by constant gratitude. Endran. In year 6 of their flight, a festival of harvest moons bright over the Dothraki Sea, news arrived that Lord Varys had fallen from Robert's grace and vanished. Some said the eunuch fled to Pentos, others that he drowned in the Blackwater after a curious misstep. Meanwhile, rumors of Daenerys' Targaryen wedding a horselord spilled westward. Fires of possibility leapt. If dragons re-emerged, Robert's rage might fix eastward, giving respite to hidden heirs. Gerd convened a council in a half-collapsed amphitheater outside Mantares. Beric, now gaunt but hard as sinew, Lyanna and Elia, Captain Lark, who'd sailed in from Lys, and a lanky woman in green robes who introduced herself as Quaithe of the Shadow. Quaithe's mask of red lacquer concealed everything but lambent eyes. She spoke sparingly in riddles. 3 heads ride storm, but a 4th gleams in twilight. Protect the twilight, or dawn devours. Lyanna's patience for cryptics was frayed. Speak plain, she demanded. Quaithe simply gestured toward Aegon, Jon, Rhaenys, Daron thought. Stars align or collide? Beric exhaled. Quave claims Comet's tail soon appears, heralding change. If Targaryens rally in east, your children become banners, others rally beneath, or cudgels used by foes. Best to decide now, ladies. Hide them deeper or prepare them to stand. Elia's gaze sharpened. She pictured Rhaenys in Blacksmith Yard. Sparks on raven hair. Aegon's quiet will. Daeron's thoughtful sums. Jon's watchful eyes older than his winters. One cannot bury destiny, she whispered. It sprouts through stone. Lyanna felt the old wolf rise. A howl suppressed for fear skies would shatter. Then we teach them to wield destiny like a sword, not wear it like chains. She pressed a hand to Arthur Dayne's scabbard. Winter teaches survival. Summer fields teach growth. Let Essos teach strategy. We find mentors, not spy masters who'd exploit, but honest blades. We craft them into more than prince and princess. We craft guardians. Beric nodded slowly. There is a place. The disputed lands host companies that train heirs disguised as pages. Captain Lark might smuggle them in under guise of squire apprentices. You two remain near, guiding from shadow. Then? Elia exchanged look with Lyanna. Fear fluttered, but pride stronger. We accept. And now and. Training began at a hidden fortress, once belonging to a Volantine magnate, turned free company base. There, children rose at dawn. Weapons drill, strategy games with stone counters, language lessons in High Valyrian and Giscari. Rhaenys took naturally to bow. Daeron mastered cipher scripts. Jon preferred observation towers, mapping patrol routes. Aegon, though younger, excelled at horsemanship, coaxing nervous colts calm with song. Evenings, Lyanna and Elia dined with them, weaving family around exhaustion. They told stories of Winterfell harvest feasts and Sunspear carnivals. They celebrated name days with stolen honey cakes. They let children paint a mural across the courtyard wall. A direwolfen sun entwined around 5 dragons winging toward sunrise. Years smoothed edges. Rhaenys shot moving targets at 50 paces. Daeron spoke 6 tongues. Jon sparred grown mercenaries and learned to lose gracefully, then win humbly. Aegon devised saddle modifications for swifter mount dismounts. Even Gerd, grizzled, laughed more. But the world kept turning. Ravens croaked of Robert's fatal boar hunt, of Joffrey crowned, of Ned Stark arrested, then executed on steps of Great Sept. Lyanna's knees buckled when the letter arrived. For 3 nights she did not rise. She lay on rough mattress, choking on sobs so violent her ribs ached. Elia sat vigil, cool fingers stroking sweat-slick hair. At dawn of the 4th day, Lyanna emerged, eyes bloodshot yet steady. She gathered children in courtyard and told them of a man who believed honor could mend kingdoms. They listened, tears glistening. Jon wept openly. She let them, then vowed, "We carry his honor forward. In every just choice, we resurrect him." Soon after, war split Westeros. Starks, Lannisters, Baratheons fractured. Distance did not spare pain. Letters from Oberyn told of intrigue, Tyrell machinations. Beric proposed returning to Westeros when time ripened, but Lyanna and Elia measured risk. Robb Stark now warred as king in the north. Would revelation of Lyanna's survival aid or doom him? They shelved the question for later. Enderol. Comet streaked blood-red across night 2 years later, just as Quaithe foretold. Dragons hatched far to the southeast. Daenerys Targaryen marched with Unsullied. Power realigned. Whispers of Prince Aegon bubbled in Volantine salons. Some claimed a boy with purple eyes rallied Golden Company to retake Westeros. Elia tensed each time rumor reached them. Could it be her Aegon, grown bold? No. He slept under her roof. Yet the rumor's potency stirred old loyalties. The Golden Company proclaimed for Aegon VI, a son of Rhaegar spirited away. Whether truth or convenience, Essos heard the call. Beric arranged parley with the company's new steward, Jon Connington, once Rhaegar's dear friend. Meeting happened in a candlelit cellar in Mar. Connington's hair gray, his eyes feverish with purpose. He studied Aegon, Elia's boy, then studied Lyanna, haunted by memory of the wolf maid. Tears threatened, but he reined them. "Your child bears the name," he said, voice hoarse. "So does the youth we champion. Only one may wear a crown." Lyanna's jaw hardened. "We don't seek thrones." Connington's smile saddened. "Crowns chase their rightful heads. Hide forever or claim." He bowed and left. Elia sat long after, silent. Rhaenys placed a hand on her mother's. "We can choose our path," the girl said, voice nearly woman-strong. "A crown is metal. Purpose is bone." Elia blinked tears, pulled her daughter close. And now, winter of their 11th year in exile found them high in Andalus foothills, guest house of a ruined septity. Snow dusted cypress branches. Children, tall now, sparred in cloister, while Lyanna coached footwork. Elia, cane in hand, plotted supply routes with Gerd. Beric arrived, frost-rhyming cloak. "Ravens out of Westeros," he announced. "Joffrey dead, Tommen crowned. Iron Throne riven. Stannis besieges Eastwatch. Winter roars south." Lyanna stilled. "The north? Bolton holds Winterfell." Stark banners scattered. She felt Benjen's memory blow through her. She looked at Jon. 15, solemn, his eyes Ned's gray. Her decision unfurled, like frost, fractal. "We go home." Elia's gaze sharpened, but she did not object. Dorne rises restless. Oberyn long dead, felled by the mountain. Yet Doran walks careful lines. If Dragon Queen sails west, Martells may pledge. Our children might bridge old wounds. Lyanna nodded. "We return not to claim, but to heal." Beric considered. "Danger breeds miracles," he said softly. "I have seen death undone." Preparations began. Captain Lark, hair now silver, agreed to ferry them aboard a larger brigantine, Sea Spear, under Lyseni registry. Rhaenys, Daron, Jon, Aegon spent nights copying maps, training shipboard tactics. Certificates forged. Northern traders repatriating after decades. Arthur Dayne's sword cleaned, wrapped. Lyanna cut her hair in pragmatic length. Elia dyed hers chestnut to dull Dornish signal. On eve of departure, Quaithe appeared again, mask gleaming in firelight. The path forks. Wolf, sun, dragon, shadow. Choose which leads, which follows. Lyanna asked, "And if we walk side by side?" Quaithe inclined head. "Then beware the fall of any, for the chain feels each link break." She vanished into snow swirl. Sea Spear departed from Volantis under rising dawn. Children manned lines like veterans. Essos receded. Westeros awaited. Kingdom of broken promises, but also home. At rail, Lyanna stood with Elia, brine misting their faces. "Are we ready?" Elia asked. "No," Lyanna answered. "But we are willing." She took Elia's hand. A gull screeched overhead. Welcome or warning? She couldn't tell. The wind filled canvas. The prow cleaved green waves. 5 children laughed aloft. Rhaenys balancing across spar boom. Daron charting. Jon testing tension. Aegon teaching a ship's cat to chase rope. Baby Amaray, born in Norvos to Sinel's daughter. Gurgling in Sinel's arms, newest spark of hope. Lyanna closed eyes, envisioning Winterfell's gray towers dusted in snow. Sunspear's ochre walls kissed by sun. She pictured them not as separate poles of longing but as pillars anchoring a new arch. Between them, children would carve a road lined with justice and tempered by the lessons hammered during long exile. Behind them, Essos faded into memory. Ahead, storms brewed. But storms, Captain Lark once said, are judges. Lyanna raised her face to salt wind, ready for judgment. Beside her, Elia straightened, cane tapping deck in steady rhythm. When sunrise spilled gold across waves, it glinted off the sword of the morning hidden below. Off a wooden direwolf clutched by Jon, and off 5 pairs of young eyes brimming with the wild, improbable certainty that home was not a place, but a promise they would keep, to each other, to the fallen, to the future. And so they sailed, carrying the quiet thunder of 2 mothers who refused to yield, and the gathering storm of children born to cross worlds. If the realm sought dragons or wolves, it would find instead a family, tempered by desert and sea, ready to write a new song the minstrels had not yet dared imagine. Inya, K. Wind slithered through rigging like the hiss of an unseen worm, tugging canvas taut until the seams creaked protest. Sea Spear heeled gently starboard, then settled into a smooth reach as the western current caught her underbelly and nudged her toward open ocean. Dawn embers still smoldered on the horizon, yet by the second bell, the sun rose clear, polishing the swells to hammered bronze. The deck bustled with purposeful quiet, gull-white sails aloft, coils of line snaking across planks, the faint rasp of Captain Lark's whetstone passing along the edge of her curved saber. Below, between bulkheads that smelled of salt-soaked oak and tar pitch, Lyanna Stark braced herself against the gentle roll and cinched Joan's jerkin. The boy was nearly eye level now, lean with shoulder growth that surprised her each morning as if he'd stolen inches overnight. He endured her fussing with stoic patience, though a quirk at one corner of his mouth betrayed amusement. "Your buckle's crooked," Lyanna murmured, straightening the strap. "You say that every day," John replied, low but teasing. "I think buckles bend when you look at them, Mother." She eyed him, half stern, half fond. "I learned bucklecraft from Maester Lewin himself. Have a care before you impugn Winterfell workmanship." Footsteps padded along the corridor. Darren's measured stride, quickened only by curiosity. He leaned through the hatch, an unrolled scroll in hand. Lamplight brushed his silver-gold hair, lending it a pale halo. "Harbor pilots in Pentos mark eddies at 8 points along the channel," he announced, tapping parchment. "But the last 4 winters shifted a sandbar west. We should adjust course 3/4 of a league south when we approach, else risk shoaling on the lee side." Lyanna smiled inwardly. 15, and already advising helms. "Tell the captain at once. She values charts born of fresh eyes." Darren nodded, then hesitated, noticing John's expression. A fleeting tension flickered between them, sibling rivalry sharpened by equal capability, yet wrapped in deep affection. John cocked an eyebrow as if daring Darren to claim his portion of the world. Darren's answering nod was cool, respectful. He vanished toward the ladder rungs. Lyanna exhaled, feeling the rhythm of the deck shift underfoot. Sea Spear sailing free now, no longer hugging the Lessony coast. They had slipped through the stepstones under cover of midnight, hugging coves where only smugglers anchored. The next landfall would be far to windward, Eastwatch by the sea if the gods were kind, White Harbor if storms bent them. Forestal currents, rogue Ironborn reavers, and Lannister patrols all lurked like half-remembered terrors beneath the keel. She guided John topside. Sunlight speared through the companionway, painting bright bars across his dark tunic. On deck, Rhaenys danced along the weather rail, arms extended to mimic gull wings, brown hair waving. Aegon, nearly 12, pursued her with a coil of spare line, attempting to lasso her ankles. His grin flashed, wide and mischievous. Rhaenys shrieked laughter, vaulting a bollard. The line missed, slapped planks harmlessly. Captain Lark glanced from the helm, lips curving in wry indulgence. Then her stern look shooed them aft, where rope play could not foul crucial sheets. Gerd, leaning against a pinrail, tracked the siblings' chase. The old soldier's weathered face softened, as it always did watching the children. He inclined his head as Lyanna approached, then turned eyes seaward. "Eastern currents with us longer than expected," he murmured. "Fine fortune or omen." Lyanna followed his gaze across the rolling blue, horizon unmarred by sail. "Fortune," she decided. "We have stored enough omens to fill the hull. Let the gods find new playthings." Gerd chuckled under his breath. "Beric remains below writing dispatches. Says Brotherhood agents in the Vale report fractured loyalties. Arryn men split between Littlefinger and the new Queen Mother. Does that help us?" Lyanna asked. "Chaos obscures and devours. Ay." His voice darkened. "But wolves hunt in chaos." They shared a grim silence over the rail until a bell clanged twice. Lark's first mate, a square-jawed Ibonese named Shala, barked orders, hands aloft, Trim starboard topsail. Sailors scrambled. The wind freshened, slapping hair and cloaks. Salt spray flecked Lyanna's cheeks. She tasted brine and memory unfurled. The chill spray off the white knife when she'd ridden past its frozen shallows 2 decades before. Home drew closer with every gust, yet felt a mythic dream. Across deck, Elia emerged, cane tapping steady pattern. Reformers at Cohor had forged the cane's core in bright steel, light but strong. She reached Lyanna's side, dark cloak drawn tight over slender frame, and followed her gaze north. They said little. Words had long since become secondary between them. The hush that lay gently over their shared past spoke louder than conversation. Still, Elia voiced what both weighed. There's frost in the air even here. When storms rise, our children will feel more than salt on their skin. Lyanna nodded. We prepare them. We trust them. And we shield them, as needed. Shield, but not smother, Elia reminded softly. Rhaenys is almost 17. She will not be contained. She gestured with her chin toward the rail where her daughter now helped Aegon coil line. Rhaenys towering almost as tall as Gerd, eyes bright with desert fire. Nor should she, Lyanna replied. But neither will I let her spear herself on a Lannister pike out of reckless pride. A beat. Jon keeps his caution. He may temper her blaze. Daeron tempers them all, Elia added, a trace of humor. He knows how to turn coin and conscience into the same arrow. Below, near the binnacle, Daeron had returned with chart updates. Lyanna watched him confer with Captain Lark, pointer flashing over parchment. The captain's nod conveyed approval. Farther aft, Beric Dondarrion appeared, spectral in ragged cloak. Torches above the companionway cast hollows under his cheekbones. He glanced toward Lyanna, one eye burning, the other milky and blind, then moved to address Lark. A sparrow landed on the yardarm overhead, preening, as though considering stowing away on a voyage haunted by ghosts. The next 3 days passed in relative calm, though nerves tautened each dusk as watchmen scanned waters. Rhaenys drilled with bow at sunrise, loosing arrows into a knotted fender tossed astern. Harlan retrieved and recorded her accuracy. Aegon honed footwork in tight circles on the forecastle, wooden practice sword flickering under Naeem's instruction. Jon spent hours high in the tops, learning wind language from an old Volantine rigger named Tangaro, who spoke little common but conveyed whole treatises with gestures. Evenings, after lamplighting, the family gathered in the mess. Sanel ladled thick lentil stew studded with cured ham. The children's laughter echoed among beams. Lyanna and Elia shared honeyed wine sparingly, comfort, not indulgence. Beric told tales of tourneys long past, though gaps in his memory left intervals where children supplied invented details, turning dire legend to lively myth. On the 5th night, sky to the west bruised purple. Lark paced, sniffing dampness in the breeze. She ordered storm sails prepared. Noon of the 6th day, a wall of cloud advanced, steel gray hammered flat along its leading edge. Lightning flickered inside like cold forge sparks. Sailors scrambled as Lark shouted, "Reef foretopsail, haul mizzen tight." Lyanna secured hatch covers and shepherded Elia below, with the youngest two. Rhaenys and Jon remained on deck by Lark's leave, helping lash boom lines. Rain struck with stinging ferocity, pelting like slingstones. Sea spear plowed into mounting swells. Her deck angled precariously. Every few heartbeats the mainmast shuddered under a gust that sounded like a lion's roar. Amid chaos, Jon glimpsed a shape far abaft, a gray outline cresting the horizon, hull low, triangular sails black. He blinked away spray, then shouted. Lark swung her spyglass, gripped rail. "Salarosi Raider brig," she spat. "Uses storm cover." Rhaenys raced toward the quarterdeck, eyes flaming. "We fight." "We outrun," Lark replied, "but raise crossbows for dissuasion." Lightning slashed, revealing a second sail behind the first. Lyanna rushed topside, hair plastered, sword strapped. She met Jon at the capstan. His face was deadly still. Gray eyes storm dark. "They close fast," he said. "Remember your breathing." she told him, the voice she had used when he first faced a straw-stuffed post. Rhaenys notched an arrow at the rail. Beric appeared wielding a pike, spectral silhouette framed by electric flash. "They've a hunger," he muttered. "But the storm's teeth are sharper than theirs." Sea Spear angled eastward, cresting high rollers, spray wreathing her bow like steam. The distant raiders struggled in heavier seas. Note for speed, not punishment. Lark exploited each gust, weaving a jagged course that forced pursuers to adjust. Bleeding momentum. Arrows from Rhaenys and Harlan arced, vanishing in the gloom. One splintered a raider's foresail, slowing it further. By dusk, the shapes vanished behind the watery veil. Crew exhaled, but Lark kept storm sails reefed, wary of renewed approach. Through the night, Sea Spear ran under double-reefed topsails, keeling wildly. Below, children lay lashed to bunks. Elia whispered Dornish lullabies to ease their trembles, even as beams groaned overhead. At dawn, the gale eased. Steersmen sighted nothing but cobalt waves capped in foam. Lark gathered command staff. Lyanna, Garrett, Beric. We crossed a current uncharted, she said, pointing to wet map. That storm hurled us far north, of course. If my reckoning holds, we're nearer Loreth than Eastwatch. Lyanna frowned. White Harbor. If we keep northeast, we strike Loreth Isles, skirt Skag of Essos, then bear west to Skagos and down the Shivering Sea. Risk. Raiders of then and Skagosi storms. Gerd folded thick arms. Better raiders than royal patrols. Beric placed a finger on map's margin. A hidden harbor on Skane's south coast might grant resupply. Ice caves once served Smiling Brotherhood as cache. Lyanna weighed tides. Winter marches south. North seas may already freeze. Lark's shoulders rolled. My ribs remember worse ice. Sea Spear's hull coppered, built for high reveal. I'll get you there if you keep the mast upright. Decision fell swift. They altered heading, trimmed sail for colder winds. Temperature dropped over ensuing days, breath plumed white by dawn. Sailors donned bearskin mantles, traded songs of summer seas for throaty chants to the storm god. Children's cheeks reddened in biting breeze. Nostrils tingled with the scent of drifting bergs. Jon ascended to crosstrees and stared north at floe edges, transfixed by the vast hush of ice. The first iceberg reared on a moonlit night, pale cathedral luminous in starlight. Sea Spear glided around it, hull creaking where meltwater hissed upon planks. The second berg groaned like a slumbering giant. Lark posted doubled watches. Ringing a bell, she issued a bottle of Myrish fire oil to the forward lookout to ignite in emergency, marking obstacles. 2 evenings later, Gerd sighted gulls swirling glacier cliffs off port. Land birds, he whispered. We near Skagos. Mist hugged water. The island rose bleak and jagged, slate slopes flecked with snow, pine stands clinging in windswept gullies. Hunting horns echoed faint from unseen heights. Sea Spear navigated a narrow channel between fanged rocks to an inlet shaped like a yawning maw-da-to-wat. Here the water calmed. Ice floes drifted lazily. A pebbled beach extended beneath looming bluffs, anchored half a cable length offshore. Sea Spear lowered its longboat. Lyanna, Elia, Gerd, Harlan, and Naim rowed ashore with essential gear, while Lark remained aboard ready for sudden departure. Crusts of sea ice cracked under keel. Seals watched with lamp-yellow eyes before sliding into inky depths. The beach felt otherworldly, air sharp, briny, laced with evergreen resin. Snowflakes drifted from pale sky, though no cloud seemed thick enough to berth them. Lyanna knelt, scooping a handful of coarse sand. It smelled like Winterfell's crypts, dust and memory. Children disembarked, momentarily hushed by the stark grandeur. Rhaenys inhaled deeply, exhaling smoke-white breath. Jon bent to trace frost patterns on pebbled stones. Daron scanned cliffs with analytic gaze. Aegon shivered, but grinned, puffing at the cold as if challenging it. Beric directed them toward a cliffside fissure masked by blackthorn shrubs. Smugglers used it, he said. Leads to cavern network, dry and hidden. We rest, wait for winds to shift. He guided them up a goat track slick with frost. Inside, the cavern opened into cathedral-sized vaults. Stalactites hung like frozen spears. Ice-sheathed walls and rippled curtains that refracted lantern glow into rainbow shards. Echoes swallowed footfalls. Children gasped in wonder, sound bouncing like ghosts. Naeem and Harlan explored side passages, reporting bone piles. Seal, goat. Some human. Old? Harlan said, voice hushed. Decades, maybe more. Lyanna's skin prickled. She ordered one tunnel blocked with crates. They established camp near a subterranean spring whose warm vapors created swirling fog. Sanel brewed broth from salted beef and dried leeks. Steam curled in ethereal tendrils. The children huddled around clay mugs, savoring warmth. Elia massaged her hip, grateful for the natural heat seeping from rock. That night, as wind howled beyond cliff, Lyanna kept watch by the cave mouth. Snow whipped sideways, erasing footprints as quickly as they formed. She cradled Arthur Dane's sword unsheathed across her lap, pale edge gleaming faintly in starlight. Winter wind carried whispers, voices she'd long buried. Benjen calling, Ned's quiet counsel. She closed her eyes, letting the weight of grief settle like snow on pine boughs, neither crushing nor lightening, simply present. She heard soft steps, Jon approaching wrapped in a bearskin cloak. He sat in silence, staring at the sword. Finally, he asked, "Was he your friend?" "Arthur?" She considered. "I barely knew him, yet he guarded my life when honor demanded easier choices. He fell protecting possibility." Jon traced a finger along the blades fuller, gingerly. "Will I need to fall too?" The question cut deeper than steel. "I pray not," she whispered. "I train you so you may stand, not fall. But some truths outlive flesh." She touched his shoulder. "Your father fell because truth mattered. We keep walking so his fall bears fruit." "Oh." Jon watched snow swirl, eyes dark pools of thought. "When I was small," he said, "I dreamed of a great wolf pacing a frozen lake. Tonight he howled beneath red leaves. Am I meant to find him?" "Dreams guide, not govern," Lyanna said, though a shiver crawled her spine. "Winterfell's heart tree might call, but you choose whether to answer." She kissed his brow. "Sleep. Tomorrow we plan our next tide." Jon rose, the bearskin rustling like restless wind, and retreated into cavern's glow. Lyanna exhaled, steadying pulse. She scanned dark horizon, stars fencing clouds, and thought of the path ahead. Across Broken Branch Channel, then down the coast, into the conspiring maelstrom of a realm at war. But Skagos granted a respite. Time to mend sails and minds. They spent 6 days in the ice caves. Each morning, Rhaenys and Jon climbed ridges to scout. Daron cataloged stalagmite minerals. Aegon discovered a rookery where shaggy puffins nested, coaxing them with dried fish until they accepted crumbs from his hand. Elia's hip eased in mineral steam. She took short walks along shoreline, cane tapping through drifted powder. On the 4th evening, a curtain of shimmering light unfurled across the sky. Bands of green and violet rippling like phantom banners. Children tumbled outside to gape. Elia stood beside Lyanna, tears reflecting aurora glow. "My mother spoke of skies like this above Sunspear only once in winter of my birth." She whispered. "She said the gods wrote omens in light." "What does this say?" Lyanna asked. Elia leaned on her cane, chin lifting. "That light finds even the loneliest corners." Snowflakes swirled upward, caught in auroral tides. Jon raised a hand as though to catch them, palm glowing emerald. Next noon, Lark signaled from Seaspear, sky clearing, wind shifting southwest. They ferried stores back through slushy surf. As they shoved off from Skagos, seals barked farewell. Children clustered at the stern, watching the island recede, scribbling final outlines of its jagged peaks into memory. 18 days later, Sea Spear rounded the southeastern tip of Cape Kraken. The North's coast unfurled. Black pine forests, slate cliffs, beaches strewn with driftwood logs bigger than ships' masts. Lyanna's heart pounded. The realm's breath, cold and familiar. They anchored in a secluded cove beneath towering sea stacks where gulls nested in thousands. Lark lowered boats only after 3 sunrise watches confirmed no war galleys prowled. Gerd, Lyanna, and Harlan scouted inland first, discovering an abandoned fisherman's hut near a frozen creek. Red leaves from a lone weirwood lay scattered across snow. A quiet sign that the old gods still watched. They returned for Elia and children. Lyanna set foot on Westerosi soil with Jon's hand clasped firmly, the chill seeping through her boots like an old ghost crawling up bones. Inside the hut, they built a peat fire in a cracked hearth. Smoke curled through gaps in the thatch, yet warmth spread. Rainey strung her bow on wall pegs. Darren unfurled parchment maps, sketching their location relative to White Harbor. Aegon fetched snowmelt for tea. Jon swept debris aside, organizing gear with methodical urgency. Elia sank onto a bench, gaze tracing knotholes in beams carved by long-dead hands. Night fell swift. Outside, wolves howled, distant yet clear. Lyanna paused mid-stir of barley porridge, breath hitching. Jon met her eyes, recognition mirrored. "They call," he whispered. Gerd closed the door bar. "They smell strangers." "Or kin," Lyanna murmured. Inside the old hut, history circled, old joints groaning like Winterfell's gates. Lyanna set bowls before each child. Steam fogged air, mingling with wood smoke. For one heartbeat, as spoons dipped, she felt the world hold its breath. 2 women who had defied crowns and seas returned with 5 young hearts alight against the coming dark. Outside, wolves sang beneath a sliver moon, carrying word through forests and vales that the exile was ending, that new players had stepped onto the frost-cracked board. Snow deepened over the next fortnight, drifts swaddling pines in muffled hush. The group hiked south in stages, hugging waterways where ice bore their weight in creaking acquiescence. Their cloaks whitened, beards iced, eyelashes frosted. Yet spirits kindled, each mile south warmed by the familiarity of landscape patterns etched into Lyanna's bones. Boulder ridges shaped by giants' hammers, gullies where wind moaned the same tune she'd heard as a child. Twice they evaded Bolton patrols warily crossing backroads. Once they witnessed a column of ragged smallfolk herded north, captives for the Dreadfort, their faces gray with fear. Jon's jaw clenched. Rhaenys' hand strayed to her bow. Lyanna stilled them. Too few, too exposed. We fight when we hold ground we can fortify. She whispered, "Their freedom will come." On the 12th day, they reached the outskirts of White Harbor at dusk. Lanterns along the outer wall glimmered through flurries. Merman's Court rose beyond. Towers lit gold against night. The air smelled of fish smoke and pine tar, stabbing Lyanna with homesick ache. Gerd led them to a safe house, a cooper's shed near the New Barrel district. There they removed snow-caked cloaks and kindled brazier warmth. Beric departed at once to contact Wyman Manderley. The Lord of White Harbor had, rumor claimed, sheltered northern loyalty under a smiling, obedient facade. If any great lord dared hide exiles, it would be Wyman. While waiting, Lyanna paced, restless. Jon polished his sword, a slim castle-forged blade gifted by Gerd. Aegon and Daeron mended mittens with coarse thread. Rhaenys trimmed bowstrings. Elia stirred a kettle of oats, humming softly, a tune once sung by Dornish washerwomen at Sunspear fountains, incongruous yet soothing amidst the chill. Midnight, the hatch scraped. Beric returned with a hooded figure who ducked inside trailing frosty air. He threw back his cowl, revealing a jowly face fleshed by good dinners, eyes blue and shrewd. Wyman Manderley. He bowed deeply to Elia and Lyanna. "My ladies," he boomed in low rumble. "The North remembers, and so do I." He swept gaze over the children, awe shimmering. "By the seven and the old, I scarce believe my eyes." Lyanna inclined head in guarded greeting. "You risk much by meeting so plainly. My people trade rumors like fish, but few recall sense after a fortnight." Dimples creased his cheeks. "We have roles for ghosts at court, provided they wear masks." He sobered. "Your nephew Rob has fallen. House Stark hides in shadows. Yet embers remain, awaiting wind. If you will it, I shall blow." "Now." Elia shifted, cane tip tapping stone. "Stoke embers too soon, and flames consume all." "Better fire than rot," Wyman countered. "Boltons feast on rot." Lyanna stepped closer. "We came to heal, not burn." "Sometimes cautery saves the limb," Wyman said. "I offer harbor within Newcastle. Secret tunnels connect my cellars to the wolf's den. No Lannister eye sees that far. There you may deliberate." He turned to Jon. "You have Brandon's chin?" He observed, voice softening. "Our people will rally to such a visage." Jon colored, unsure how to reply. Lyanna intervened. "He is Jon. His father's honor stands within him, but he is his own man." "A boon," Wyman said. He produced signet keys from a pouch. "Return with me ere dawn. Day guards change then. Ships from Old Town deliver flour. Noise enough to cloak new guests." Lyanna weighed trust. Beric's one eye met hers. He nodded faintly. She turned to Elia, who gave subtle assent. "Very well," Lyanna said. "Lead us." They crossed White Harbor beneath pre-dawn gloom. Mists off the white knife-cloaked streets. Manderly guards guided them through postern arches, across frozen fish ponds, into cavernous undercrofts, smelling of flour and damp stone. Hidden passages twisted upward to a warren of rooms warmed by braziers. Storerooms repurposed as secret apartments. Tapestries hung to hush echoes. Seashell motifs and silver mermaids dancing across teal cloth. Only a handful of sworn servants knew the truth. Wyman's eldest granddaughter, a plump girl named Winifred, greeted them shyly with trays of warm apple pastries. Days slipped into measured routine behind stone walls. Children practiced arms in an abandoned saltfish hall cleared for drills. Jon sparred with Wyman's second son, Wendell, who fought with a greatsword, yet struggled against Yon's nimble footwork. Rhaenys fletched arrows with Manderly goose feathers. Daron advised stewards on ledger discrepancies, earning murmurs of admiration from harbor bailiffs. Aegon found sanctuary in the rookery, feeding ravens bits of pickled herring until they croaked Dornish lullabies he'd learned from Elia. Lyanna and Elia attended clandestine councils in Wyman's solar. Maps littered tables. North split among Karstark rebels. Umbers fractured. Bolton's dominant by Lannister gold. Far south, word of Queen Daenerys' triumphs pulsed through rumor web. Dragons risen, cities freed. Wyman argued for overt declaration. The Dragon Queen would reward the North for swift fealty. Lyanna cautioned. One conqueror's mercy may become another's appetite. Elia urged exploring alliance nonetheless, if only to leave her against northern despair. Beric returned from travels bearing tidings. Ironborn raided Stony Shore. Stannis camped at Castle Black with a makeshift host. Wildlings settled Giftlands. Shifting sands, he said. Strong footing for new seeds. One wintry evening, Wyman announced a tourney feast arranged by Frey emissaries, backed by Bolton's sanction, to celebrate a new marriage alliance, Ramsay Bolton to a supposed Arya Stark. The castle buzzed. Fury crackled through hidden corridors. Lyanna's knuckles whitened on Arthur Dayne's hilt. He weds a phantom to bolster claim. She snarled. A child suffers for it. Jon's eyes burned. We free her. Wyman spread hands. The Boltons hold Winterfell strongly, but not invulnerably. Snowdrifts hinder supply. Position men on three sides, deny egress, stoke rebellion inside. Stark's loyalists yet breathe within those walls. Beric, pale in torchlight, laid a black-stained finger on the plan. We led from shadow, cut their throat by inches. Rhaenys leaned forward, voice low. The people must see a savior, not a knife in the darkness. Lyanna studied her daughter's fierce eyes and Jon's clenched fists. Then we do both, she decided. Scalpel and standard. Bolton expects ghosts, let him meet legend. Preparations consumed weeks. Forging of false banners, mustering secret levy of White Harbor mariners, contacting spearwives hiding near Barrowlands. Daron wrote ciphered missives to Manderley agents posing as merchants. Aegon concocted lantern codes for communication across frozen miles. Jon traveled incognito to Flint's Finger to rally fisherfolk, who remembered Rickard Stark's fair taxes. Rhaenys rode east to the Wolf's Teeth, forging pact with clan chiefs whose daughters she had once defended in cohort training bouts. January thaw came late. Snowpack remained crust-hard by first new moon. A lean wolf lurked outside Newcastle each dawn, silver-gray and bright-eyed. Jon left scraps, and soon it lingered. Rhaenys named him Hearth. One morning Jon emerged to find Hearth accompanied by 2 smaller wolves, perhaps mate and whelp. Omen, enough. The assault plan crystallized. Under guise of grain convoy fulfilling Bolton levies, Manderley wagons would trundle toward Winterfell's east gate. Hidden among barrels, Lyanna, Elia, Rhaenys, Aegon, Daron, Derek, Gerd, and a dozen seasoned Free Company veterans recruited by Harlan. Once inside, they would incite uprising among castle servants, open sally ports for a clandestine host waiting in the Wolfswood. 300 northern loyalists under Wendell Manderley. 2 nights before departure, Lyanna sat in a turret chamber. Snowy winds rattling shutters. Rhaenys entered, crimson cloak swirling. She hesitated, then spoke. "Mother, when the gate opens, I must lead." Her voice trembled, not with fear but passion. "If a queen of dragons rides one day, I will stand near. But this is our north. Let them see a sun and a wolf side by side." Lyanna's throat tightened. She stood, embraced her daughter, felt armor studs cold beneath wool. "I knew the moment you notched your first arrow at Shadewater you were born for storms. Ride, but remember, every arrow you loose, draw it on compassion's bow." She drew back, pressing a palm to Rhaenys' cheek. "I am proud beyond words." Rhaenys' eyes shimmered. "The world tried to orphan me, and still I found 2 mothers." Lyanna laughed softly, though tears pricked. "Then give it 2 reasons to regret." They clasped forearms, warrior's grip, severing the final braid of childhood with shared resolve. Below, Jon polished a plain steel helm. No sigil, just matted gray. Aegon helped tie padded straps. Daron checked saddle cinches, methodical. Elia watched, hands folded over cane, strength in every line though body frail. "Remember," she told them. "Victory is not the death of foes, but the life you breathe into the realm after." Jon inclined his head. "We will breathe for father for all." Convoy day dawned under leaden skies. Wind carried flakes thick as goose down. Wagons rolled, oxen thick-furred and patient. Guards in Bolton livery escorted, Manderley men who had long played double. Lyanna crouched inside a grain cart beneath tarp, Jon beside her. She felt the rumble of wheels through bones, every jolt a heartbeat. She recalled her flight from the Tower of Joy. Yet now her pulse throbbed not fear, but purpose. Through slatted boards she glimpsed Winterfell's towers emerging, darker, scorched at edges since occupation. Familiar scents drifted, pine smoke, baked oats, cold iron. Tears sprang unbidden. Home. She touched Jon's shoulder. He squeezed her hand. At East Gate, Bolton guards hailed convoy. Wyman's steward atop lead wagon boomed about tribute grain. Inspection dragged minutes, too long. Lyanna tensed. Jon's eyes flitted to sword hilt. Then the portcullis rattled upward, with a squeal like a dying crow. Wagons lurched through. Inside the yard, shouts and axes bit ice to clear wheel ruts. Dogs bayed. Ramsay's banner, flayed man, flapped from rampart. Fury flared in Lyanna's chest, hot and savage. Signal came swift. A stable boy toppled a lantern, oil flame rising unnatural blue. Underground, barracks men spilled from false barrels, blades whispering. Rainey's vaulted crate, bow already in motion. Arrow hissed, piercing a guard's throat mid-shout. Chaos erupted. Lyanna sliced tarp ropes, sprang to snow. Her first strike hamstrung a spearman, second took his throat. John leapt past, parrying an axe, riposting under guard's arm. Aegon hurled a tanglefoot net onto crossbowmen on parapet, entangling bolts and limbs. Darren fired a mini-scorpion from wagon bed, bolt shearing winch rope that held portcullis. Gate crashed closed, isolating yard. Servants emerged from kitchens, eyes wide. Lyanna shouted, "The North remembers! Rise!" Scullions seized cleavers, stable boys hefted shovels. Gerd Bull rushed 2 jailers dragging a girl, Jane Poole, mistaken as Arya, behind main keep. He cut them down, lifted the trembling captive. Ramsay's hounds howled from kennels. One handler released them. John intercepted Alpha Bitch with spear butt, knocking it aside. Rainey skewered a second mid-leap, sorrow flashing at the necessity. Snow churned crimson. Bolton men, atop battlements, poured arrows. Elia, escorted by Harlan, limped toward inner ward arch. Kane tapped rhythm she had practiced across continents. She raised voice, clear, carrying. House Martell stands with the North. No more flayed sons, no more false kings. Her words rang like a bell. Molestown refugees conscripted as kitchen drudges answered with rebel cries, overturning cauldrons atop pursuing guards. Within 20 minutes, Winterfell lower yard fell to chaos under rebel control. But Ramsay's core Bolton force, 80 men, retreated behind great hall doors. They barred entries, prepared murder holes. Ziga within walls loomed. Lyanna gathered her kin in a corner by the collapsed smithy. Gerd, breathing hard, reported Wendell's host nearing South Gate, but snarled by ice trench. "We must open inner port," he said. John studied wall angles. "Cistern tunnel," he said quietly. "Benjen showed me. A crack leads under great hall hearth." He turned to Lyanna. "Small, but I'll fit." Aegon stepped forward. "So will I." Rainey shook head. "We need archers outside." John goes. "I guard tunnel exit." Lyanna wait precious seconds. She clasped Yon's shoulders. "Remember, droplets become river," she said. "Childhood code for silent flow." He nodded. "Base calm." Aegon pressed a dagger into Jon's belt. "Gift from Kuhor Smithy. Valyrian patterned. For ghost work," he said. John slipped into snow-choked alley, weaving through corpses of felled guards. He reached water stairs, ducked into damp alcove behind cask racks. The cistern door stood partly frozen. He chipped ice with dirk, slipped inside. Darkness pulsed. He crouched, wading frigid water silently until his fingers found the fissure. A gap where stone settling had cracked mortar. He squeezed through, chest scraping, breath fogging in pitch. Ahead, warmth prickled. Hearth heat. He emerged behind a tapestry between stone and wood panel. Voices echoed, Ramsay barking orders, iron boot steps. John peeked. Great hall thrummed with tension. Bolton men arrayed on benches overturned as barricades. Torches flickered. Ramsay stood at dais, pink-skinned, grin wide, eyes cruel. Beside him, a gaunt man with gray hair. Roose Bolton. John cursed. Lord of the Dreadfort remained alive. The elder Bolton's composure unnerved John, more than Ramsay's mania. "Archers steady on that door," Roose said calmly. "Host outside will starve or freeze. We hold." He turned to Ramsay. "Do not mistake theatrics for strategy." Ramsay twirled a flaying knife. "Let them squeal," he said. "Squeals fuel fear." John crept along panel, mind racing. Roose alive complicated insurgency. He measured routes. Tapestry to dais 8 yards. Guard 620. Could he eliminate Roos fast? Rainey's and others would storm once gate unlatched, but gate bars spanned width, requiring 2 men to hoist. He exhaled. Father, guide. He drew Aegon's dagger, blade black rasped, near invisible, waiting until a draft fluttered torches, when guards glanced upward. Jon slipped out, hugging shadow behind a pillar. Another foot, then another. He crouched behind dais plinth, breath shallow. Roos spoke again, stepping backward, closer to Jon's concealment. The North bows to order, not resistance. Drive that into survivors. Jon rose swift, pivoted, plunging dagger into Roos's kidney. The Lord stiffened, eyes widening. Jon clamped hand over mouth, yanked, blade slicing upward. Roos shuddered, collapsed muffled behind dais curtain. Ramsay's head snapped at sound. He saw his father fall half visible. Father? He ran. Jon ducked. Ramsay rounded dais, met Jon's steel across his gut. The flaying knife flew from his hand, clattering. He screamed, slashing blindly. Jon kicked knee, sending him sprawling. Hall erupted. Shouts, bowstrings twanged. An arrow nicked Jon's sleeve. He rolled behind pillar, blood pumping with thunder. Ramsay scrambled toward fallen knife, but slipped in his father's gore, wailing. Outside, Rhaenys heard clamor. She dashed to door. Signaled Gerd. He and Harlan rushed forward, axes biting crossbeam. 2 loyalists inside, kitchen maid and blacksmith, turned rebels. Slid heavy bolts. Doors crashed open. Rhaenys charged, arrow fletching grazing her cheek. Inside mayhem exploded. Rhaenys' shaft felled a guardsman drawing on Jon. Gerd barreled through bench wall, scattering men. Lyanna entered like winter whirlwind, Arthur Dane's sword flashing pale arcs. She locked eyes on Ramsay, who crawled, blood streaming from slashes. His gaze, fevered with hatred, met hers. Realization dawning. You, he hissed. Dead wolf. Lyanna advanced, blade tip leveled. Justice is memory's blade. She struck, hamstringing him. He shrieked. She pinned his wrist with boot, wrenched the knife from his grasp, tossed it aside. Then she disarmed his arrogance. Lifting the pale sword, she severed his throat in a single elegant slice. Blood fountained, steam rising from snow-chill floor as his body convulsed. The hall battle ended quickly. Bolton men leaderless, many surrendering die. Roos still breathed in ragged gurgles. Jon knelt, eyes wide. Roosy's lips twitched. You are Stark, he rasped. Inevitable. He died. Silence layered, thick. Smoke from overturned braziers swirled. Snow blew through shattered arrow slits. Rhaenys slung bow. Surveyed ruin. Wendell burst in with Northmen, cheers echoing. Servants wept. Elia limped across threshold, face pale but triumphant. She approached Roos's corpse, gazed long. You flayed my nieces, she whispered. May the mother flay your memory. Lyanna turned to Jon. His tunic soaked crimson. She clutched his shoulders. Are you hurt? Not my blood, he answered, voice distant. She enveloped him, the sword still dripping at her side. Outside, horns announced arrival of Stannis scouts. Ravens burst from rookery. Wolves howled in far wood. Winterfell breathed again, breath faint and tentative. Night deepened, but within the great walls, torches flared and forges roared back to life. Snowstorms barred travel for a fortnight. During that time, Winterfell transformed. Flayed man banners burned. Direwolf standards sewn overnight from spare cloth rows on parapets. Northmen trickled in, clan chiefs, bannerless allies, small folk, drawn by rumor that a Stark walked the halls again. They entered courtyard reverently, eyes widening when they beheld Lyanna and Jon. Some knelt, some wept. Lyanna greeted each as kin. Elia from the solar window watched history mend stitch by stitch. One evening, Lord Manderley convened leaders in the great hall. Fires roared, crackling pine releasing amber sparks. Lyanna stood beside Jon, Rhaenys, Daeron, Aegon Dotterel. Gerd and Beric flanked. Wyman's voice boomed. "Friends of the North, behold the return of the Wolf Maid, rightful daughter of Winterfell, and her son Jon, blood of Stark. Let all present swear fealty." Voices thundered, but Lyanna lifted a hand. "I accept your loyalty, but not as queen. The North needs unity, not crowns piled on pyres." She gestured to Jon. "Here stands the next generation, tempered by exile, guided by honor. Serve him and serve the realm of peace we forge with our Dornish kin." She took Elia's hand where she sat near hearth. Murmurs rippled. Questions of legitimacy, of dragons to south. Lyanna addressed them. "We will send envoys to Dragon Queen. We will forge pact of fire and ice, and with it melt the chains of winter tyranny. But first we heal our home." Cheers swelled, pounding rafters. Jon stood rigid, humility warring with resolve. Later, alone in Godswood, branches heavy with rime, Jon knelt before Hearttree. Red leaves rustled though wind lay still. He whispered names. Ned, Benjen, Robb, Arya. A tear traced cheek, fell on snow. Branches creaked. He felt a presence, quiet, abiding, neither consoling nor condemning, merely witnessing. The old gods did not answer with words, yet Jon sensed sanction. Footsteps approached. Lyanna. She stood beside him, gaze on red leaves. "I thought I might never see these again?" she said. He rose. They waited. They clasped hands. Above, sky shimmered. A wedge of stars brighter than rest, almost arrow straight across the heavens, pointing southeast where rumors of dragons still grew. Lyanna exhaled, seeing future paths radiate like frost lines. "Much remains," she said. "But we are home," Jon answered. "And home walks with us," Lyanna corrected, touching her breast. "Carry it wherever storms blow." Snow fell silent, blanketing footprints. Mother and son lingered until dawn pinked the sky, breathing pine-sharp air mingled with promise. Somewhere beyond those walls, Rhaenys led archers drilling in crisp dawn. Aegon and Daeron plotted grain allocations for winter stores. Elia penned letters to Dorne and to Dragonstone. Beric sharpened swords for wars yet unlived. And in the deeper dark beyond known fires, forces stirred. Cersei's spite, Euron's madness, Night's King's chill. But for that fragile dawn, the realm held a heartbeat of fragile coexistence. A mother reclaimed, a promise reborn, light threading through shattered stone. Wolves prowled ramparts again. Sun-touched banners of wolf and sun entwined. Lyanna watched breath plume from her lips and smiled. Something fierce, unbroken, and new as any dawn she'd ever dared imagine.